Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big Brother 25 Roundtable podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and we are here today to talk about everything from the live feeds and rate the players based on how well we think they are doing in the game from 1 to 10. With me to do so is Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
I am doing great. Once again, another good week of feeds. I will say, though, that I don't think I should participate in the Stockwatch ever again. I think I should just respectfully bow out because I am beyond horrible at it. Even when I take a chance. Yeah. Even when I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. It's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Oof.
All right. Well, also joining us for his first Big Brother Stockwatch appearance is Chappell. How you doing, Chappell?
I'm good. This is so exciting. I've always wanted to do this. Mike Bloom was on the live feed update for the first time, so he kind of took my whole little thing that I had going. Yeah. So now I get to do this, and it's going to be great because we have a lot to talk about. And like Melissa, I'm very bad at these things, so I just have been opting out. So I'm really just here to ruin everybody else's fun. I'm about to tank everything. Everything's about to be in disarray. It's going to be a stock market crash today, and it's going to be okay. We'll all survive.
You know what they say about Chappell is that he's always one step ahead of Mike Bloom.
They definitely call me a Mike Bloom type in certain circles.
Well, we are here to, as I said, talk about everything that's been happening on the feeds this week. And oh boy, what a week it has been once again. A different kind of week than the chaos of last week, but the chaos has not stopped chaosing. And even just today, things are continuing to advance and change and shift. And there's a lot to talk about in terms of both what has happened, what we think will happen, and who's making a good move and who's making a bad move, because there's a lot of discussion on that. So probably the right podcast to be tuning into this week. But let's give a quick summary of how we got here, because you might need one. Things continue to update minute by minute. But basically, from the last time we spoke, of course, Luke was ejected from the game. That hadn't happened yet the last time we spoke. It feels like we just did this, but that then feels like forever ago. Kirsten was then evicted from the game, even though it felt like the eviction might be canceled, which I imagine is part of Melissa's Stockwatch woes. And Hisam won the HOH. Hisam decided that he wanted to target Riley with Cameron as a backup target. That was the plan. Cameron was a close second in terms of targeting Riley. The reason why he was targeting Riley in the first place was because Riley tried to make this big alliance in week 1. It was called Family Style, and then the Handful Alliance and all of that. And it was ratted out by Jared, which then put pressure on the Handful Alliance because Red went to Riley and told her about the entire alliance. So then Cameron went to Red, and they shared information about both alliances, and he panicked, and he ratted the entire thing out again to the professor side of things. But in doing so, he said, listen, they suck. I don't want to be with them anymore. I want to be with you guys, but also Riley is my daughter, and so if you could just spare her, please, I would love that. Thank you very much. So when Hisam won the HOH, and he knows that Riley made this alliance that didn't include him, and in fact was talking about targeting him and Izzy, he was like, okay, Riley has to go. I'm not listening to Cameron. In fact, Cameron, if you're so on our side, then how's this for you? You go on the block next to her, then you won't have to deal with sending your daughter home, and it'll be a nice test of how you handle the situation. Now, luckily for Cameron, or maybe unluckily for Cameron, he handled the situation quite well. As a Hufflepuff, Hisam was very happy to have Cameron sit on the block, and Cameron made no noise. He's been sitting there quietly all week long, Hufflepuffing away, and things have been great. So Hisam has been more and more on the side of let's keep Cameron around, and I need Riley out. she sucks, she's the worst, and this has just built and built as she has been scapegoated and built up as this big threat and demon and person that created this alliance that excluded these other people. And he made this big speech after he then won the veto and didn't use it, locking the nominations on the block, which of course meant that that one of them is going to be going home. But again, this speech that Hisam made during the veto ceremony apparently rubbed some people the wrong way. And his behavior over the course of the week, some of the things he's been saying has been rubbing people the wrong way. In particular, Hisam has been talking about honor, integrity, truthfulness, kindfulness. And it's been rubbing his alliance the wrong way. Izzy started talking about wanting Hisam out pre-jury because nobody wants somebody preaching truth and honor and integrity on the jury. And Hisam called a meeting 2 nights ago where he dictated, according to the rest of them, instructions on what to do for the Professors Alliance, including no side alliances allowed. And this is, and you're going to team up with this person, and you're going to team up with this person, and this is what we're going to do. He then went on to the following day, making side alliances with various people, talking to America about wanting to team up with the athletic people, talking to Cory about wanting to team up with his smarts, talking to Jag and Blue about creating an alliance that might be named, and maybe they have a handshake. All of this did not get past Cirie and Izzy. Cirie has always seemingly been considering the idea of keeping Riley around over Cameron. She has a much better relationship with Riley. So when Cory told Cirie about his conversation with Hisam, it set off a chain of events that led to Cirie and Izzy deciding, you know what, we need to flip this vote. Now, initially, it was seeming like there was some resistance. There's some very good arguments from Mimi, from Jared about why this is not necessarily the best play. But as of this morning, Cirie was able to get Jared to eventually cave and agree to go along with this plan, and they have been full steam ahead preparing this flip to happen. They've been talking to Riley and Matt. They've been talking to Jag, and basically the flip is in place. And Cirie not only wants this flip to happen, she wants Hisam to be blindsided. She not only wants Hisam to be blindsided, she wants the vote to be unanimous and have Hisam blindsided by a unanimous vote against his wishes. And that is currently the plan and the state of things as we move forward into the last couple of days before the eviction. What a week.
Whew.
It's a lot. I feel like I don't know what the smart move is or even what I want to happen. I feel like I'm partially leaning towards wanting Riley to stay because I do feel like she was unfairly blamed for the state of the house when really, like, she just made an alliance. Like, that's what people do in this show. She didn't do anything crazy or out there. It was literally just making an alliance. There was nothing really, as far as I could tell, super exclusionary about it. It was more like, oh, these are people that I get along with. Let's do this. Let's put this together. And then it kind of all just blew up. So I think Hisam being, so anti-Riley and really putting the blame on her, like, I do think, and I think you guys touched on this in one of the updates, is part of it probably stems from the fact that he's upset that he wasn't included in it and that he was kind of left as an outcast, which I understand. I don't blame him for feeling upset about being excluded. I absolutely would if I was in his position, but it is kind of, they are kind of vilifying Riley here when really she just played the game she not super well or anything, but she just was making alliances like anybody else. So I kind of am like, I want Riley to stay, but at the same time, I feel like we haven't gotten all we could get from Cameron in regards to like fun feeds, maybe annoying feeds. I don't know, but just more drama.
Well, the last thing anyone wants is for daddy to not be on feeds anymore.
That part.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, so I don't know. I really don't know what I want to happen. And I don't really know what's the best play for everyone. I think like overall I was leaning towards, I think Riley should stay for everybody, for not everybody, but for most of their game, like Jared, Cirie, etc. I think Riley staying is good for them. However, I think like the blindsiding of Hisam like is not really a great idea, just because he is winning all the competitions. He is very powerful in that way. And, you know, if they all upset him, I think he's going to feel the most betrayed by the people in his alliance versus, you know, people outside the alliance who are really good friends with Riley, say like Matt or someone like that. So I just feel like there's a lot of room for drama, a lot of room for excitement to see the rest of the week play out. So yeah.
Yeah, this is Cirie's power at work. You know, there, you know, I think Mimi says it best in so many ways that only Mimi can say it. This flip does not need to happen necessarily for the state of her alliance, for the one that Mimi and Cirie and all those good people are in. And then you look at the alternative, is that like Cirie's kind of like, I kind of like Riley. I could save Riley. And I mean, people don't love Cameron in the house, you know, and Hisam is getting a little big for his britches, you know, and you know, she's not going for that, you know, she's gonna do what makes her feel better. And I think I asked this question the first week. I was like, is Riley even the person that anybody should be targeting here? And I pretty firmly was like, no, she shouldn't be. She's not the linchpin that's going to keep all this together. But for Hisam, yeah, she actually kind of is because she expressly said his name and she looked him dead in the eye. I was like, yeah, I said it. You're so good. Why would you say his name if you don't intend on getting him out? I support him wanting to get him out, but I also support chaos. And I love chaos. And I love the fact that all of this flip is about to happen. And there is no clear winners here. I mean, of course, for Riley, it's great. But I mean, if you can keep Cameron in the house and we get more ridiculous Cameron-isms all summer, or at least for the next 2 weeks, week or so, I don't know. I'm fine with that. Because Riley is not going to give you the TV that Cameron's going to give you. But also, to Melissa's point, Riley ain't really do nothing wrong. She pissed off Hisam, who is the HOH. It happens. You know, you might go home. Sorry. But as far as like being a pariah in the house or something like that, I don't think all that's necessary. She didn't even really just start that alliance. It's kind of, you know, Jag kind of started the alliance with her, and then it all just unfolded around him. So I've been loving all of this, and I'm dying to talk about where these people stand moving into next week, because I'm so far. I hate when Big Brother gets like this, to where I'm so far ahead of myself that I'm already looking at who's going to win the next HOH, because I want to know what the backlash is going to be already. I'm tired of if the flip going to happen. I'm always going to. So when the flip happens, or if the flip doesn't happen, now what are we going to do? I'm moving on to week 3, Taran.
Oh yeah, well, lots of them are as well. It is worth noting that the survey for the Stockwatch is still up, and it will be for another 40-ish minutes. If you want to go and complete it yourself now, you can rate the players and answer some other questions like who is your favorite, and also a pertinent question for the current discussion, which is, do you think Cirie should flip the vote? 65% of the audience says yes, they do think Cirie should flip the vote, which is interesting to me. I talked about this morning. I don't think that this flip is necessarily the right move for Cirie and for a few of Cirie's allies. That said, I think it's less the vote flipping and more the discarding of Hisam that is the thing that I really disagree with. I think flipping the vote is perfectly fine as long as it doesn't alienate Hisam from your alliance. Hisam is so valuable to them, and I think their fear of Hisam as a game player is mostly unwarranted because he's so ineffective as a game player. There's a reason he got caught immediately. He's, yes, good at competitions, but beyond that, doesn't have a lot more going on. And so I think that while I can understand why Cirie is fearful of, you know, Hisam pulling in Jag, Blue, whatever, I don't think it's a realized enough fear that warrants the kind of like detour that she's currently taking in order to make sure that that power doesn't come to fruition. Because in taking that detour, what she's doing is allowing, you know, Riley, Jag, Blue, and Matt to really like lock up, solidify. Therefore, they still kind of have America. And as Cory has pointed out to them, just a couple of bad comp outcomes in a row, and all of a sudden you're really screwed, which I think is a very valid fear. All that said, I don't think that because it's theoretically the wrong play, or just because it's theoretically the wrong play, doesn't mean that it can't work. There are still, I think, some paths forward here. Primarily that there's potentially some disconnect between Riley, Matt, Jag, Blue, particularly between Blue and Riley. And Jared has a very solid in with all of that group, but primarily with Blue, with this budding kind of showmance thing that's happening. And there's definitely a world where they could use that to try and split this group up a little bit before they take shots at Cirie's group, especially because Cirie's group doesn't seem very threatening in terms of competitions. So with that, plus support from Cory, there's still a lot of room to maneuver potentially. Obviously, Cirie herself can do a lot of work to keep their sights set on other people. In my eyes, I still see the world where Riley leaves this week and they continue to use Hisam as a shield, maybe take out another person like Cameron or Jag or Blue next week, and then, worry about Hisam later because everybody is already worried about Hisam. And you can, keep Cameron and Red as a kind of like diversion threat to keep other people's eyes off of you. You've got a very well insulated, onion structured alliance on your side with the professors, the bye-bye bitches, the brown sugar babes, the Jared, the Izzy, the Felicia bookends. Like, you're very well set up there. You don't really need to worry about Hisam all that much in that spot, in my opinion. And so if I'm looking at that, like, I'm definitely taking that path. I'm taking the path of like, maybe I can convince Hisam to go along with this flip. And if not, I don't want to lose Hisam. That's my thing, because the path there looks so nice and wonderful. But it doesn't mean that the other path isn't workable. And what I'm rooting for is for this flip to happen because it's exciting. And I think it will make things more difficult for Cirie and Jared, who have been running the game very smoothly so far. And so to give them more adversity is really interesting, I think. That's kind of how I see it. I think that, it is, in my eyes, not the right play, but that doesn't mean that it's going to sink their games. And I think that people can kind of sometimes create this dichotomy of like, either it's the right move or they're dead. And I don't think we're quite there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the move would be, and I don't think this is a bad idea, is, keeping Riley. I think Riley is good for Cirie's game, but I think the blindsiding is the issue for me, at least. I think like if they could get Hisam on board, I think that this would all be fine and great, and it would just be very smooth, and they could get Cameron out, keep Riley, and still keep everything, even keel. I just think it's the blindsiding of Hisam that will cause the biggest problems versus, who's going to stay, Riley versus Cameron. I think like either one of them like doesn't really change that much. But if they blindside the HOH to do whichever one they decide to do, that's where the problems come in.
Yeah, I'd agree, because blindsiding Hisam and then not immediately taking him out next round leaves him to then potentially win HOH again. And then what? Does he remember that y'all slighted him on his last chance? Does he put up one from both sides? You don't know. And then he is likely to win the veto. I use quotation marks here because these competitions be made up. It's not like he has like some super skill for Stranger Things competitions. It just, things happen. But, but things happen. So he could end up in a position where he's in power again, and he might be volatile at that point. So I don't understand why you would want to blindside somebody and then leave them in the game to just do whatever they want, because they really could do whatever they want. But that being said, I remember the days where you would blindside the other side of the house and just kind of keep whoever voted on the wrong side ambiguous to where you could blame it on whoever. I like that. Give me the Falte versus level 6, you know, where you flip. Everyone on your team knows you're flipping. The other team is wrong about the flip, and then you blame them. I think that's a lot cleaner here. But Cirie wants to knock Hisam down a peg. I think he's pissed everybody off so much. HOH-itis is a thing that will put the target on your back so quickly. But I mean, this is astronomical levels of your HOH isn't even over. And people are already planning your demise. You're not even on the block. And people are like, yeah, let's just get through this week so we can get him. And that's crazy to me.
It's never happened before that literally the entire house has come together to unanimously blindside the HOH on eviction night at this level of magnitude where there's still 15 people left in the game. It's wild. And, you know, to be in that position is probably the biggest failure of an HOH reign we have ever seen. And that is what Cirie is trying to do. Now, they still haven't told Bowie or Red, and they don't plan to tell Bowie until kind of the last minute. And they may never tell Red. They're hoping they can just take Red's vote away so that would make it unanimous. If they don't have the ability to take his vote away with the Nether region twist, then they might end up trying to get him on board. I'm not sure. But either way, this is a colossal sort of moment for blindsides in Big Brother. And, you know, it took Cirie, I think, to make something like this happen. And this should not surprise anybody. This is exactly the Cirie that we were talking about preseason. In fact, this is like by the book Cirie playbook, because she often goes into a season and early on finds someone she wants out really bad. And it becomes a sticking point. And every time it happens, the audience is like, ooh, Cirie, I thought you were good at this. This is, oof, man. And then she gets her way, and then it all kind of works out. So I'm curious to see how this continues to work moving forward. Because again, I do think that Cirie can continue to make this work. And you know, I think we're looking at this from a very sort of strategic, logical position. And I think that Cirie tends to operate more on who she feels best about socially, who she has the better ability to like manipulate and control. And I think that probably part of what's happening here is that she's, first of all, has great influence over Riley, not nearly as much over Cameron. And she's discovering that Hisam, despite being really closely aligned with her, is somebody who just flat out does his own thing, and she has zero influence over what he does. And so while, yes, we know that Hisam actually is pretty loyal to Cirie and that group, she has no agency in that. She's at the whim of Hisam staying loyal. And he's already doing all kinds of things that's kind of messing her up with what she wants to do. And I think that's a large part of where she's coming from when she's just deciding, I'm just blowing up the game to get rid of this guy and his influence, and then this guy over here, and I'm going to pull Riley in over here. And so I think it's important to also recognize the game from that angle as well.
Yeah, for sure.
This is what happened when you put grown folk in the house. You can people like Hisam and Cirie who like, I'm grown as hell. Y'all not finna tell me what I'm not gonna do, what I am gonna do. And then as they continue to tell everybody else what they are and ain't gonna do, you know, Hisam's like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. I want Riley out, and everybody's gonna be on board with it. And I'm grown, and you can't tell me nothing. And then he goes and tells people, well, y'all can't have no side alliances either. And you can't do this, and you can't do that. And Cirie like, I'm MFing Cirie. I'm a grown ass woman. You ain't gonna tell me what to do. But also, we all unanimously gonna get you out. Everybody got to be on board with it, or else. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Put more 60-year-olds in the house. This is a fun season so far. Yeah. Not to say that those people are 60. I mean, you know, no disrespect.
I do think it's worth pointing out as well, though. You know, basically what Cirie and Izzy have done today is they've pulled in Riley and Matt, and they've gotten them to like promise, hey, when this happens, we're gonna need you to protect us. We need some promises from you. After Hisam goes, you can't just turn around and target us. Like, we need to figure out what's happening. We need a certain amount of safety from you. We need a certain amount of, promises from you. And of course, Riley and Matt are like, absolutely, 100%. After Hisam leaves, Riley says, I don't even need to win anymore. I'm going to lay low. And it's worth pointing out, I think, that we've seen this before. And if you play Big Brother, I think you should be wary of this, that when players have to beg for their lives in the game, they often later come to resent the promises they feel they were forced to make in order to stay alive in the game. And so if Riley, a couple weeks from now, is, in power and feels like a good move for her is to maybe take a shot that Cirie doesn't like, and Cirie's like, hey, we made that whole thing happen. You made these promises to me. Riley's going to be like, yeah, you held my life in your hands and you made me make all these deals that I didn't even want to necessarily make. So why should I respect that at all? If anything, I'm kind of mad that you did that. Why didn't you just help me out as an ally or whatever, right? We've seen this happen before. This is Cirie we're talking about, though. So I'm curious to see what happens with this, with the relationship between Cirie and Riley, because this kind of thing has backfired in the past a lot. So I'm curious to see what happens with it. Anyway, let's talk about what's happened with our favorite players. Should we talk about that? I polled the audience, and the audience listed their favorite players from favorite to least favorite. Do we have a guess from the two of you? Who is the least favorite?
Probably Cameron.
Is there a world where Hisam has fallen below Cameron?
That's what I'm wondering. Right. Is like maybe Hisam, but I feel like Cameron.
Yeah, I'd go with Cameron as well. I think some people are the weird Hisam is being very endearing to somebody like me who likes to see some chaotic people. So I wouldn't vote for him last. No.
Cameron, yes, by a pretty decent margin, is still in last place, as he was last week. How about second place? Because let's be real, Cirie's first place.
Yeah.
Queen.
Oh, probably Mimi.
Definitely Mimi. Root to the Reds. I'm sure. If it's not Mimi, y'all are wrong. That's all I'm saying.
Either Mimi or Felicia.
Last week it was Felicia. This week,
or maybe Cory.
It's Cory.
Ooh.
Okay, all right, okay, got it in right at the last minute.
Shout out to Core's Horse out there, the Core's Horse. I see y'all. We out here. Whoop whoop whoop.
It's here's the list. I'll give you the list. It's Cirie, Cory, Felicia, Mimi, Izzy, Matt, Jared, Jag, America, Blue, Riley, Bowie, Red, Hisam, Cameron. So some big shifts. Hisam was middle of the pack last week. He has fallen down to the bottom. Luke is gone, but he was low last week, just so everyone knows. Mimi stayed in fourth place. Jared fell from third down to middle of the pack. I don't think people have loved some of the things that he's been saying. And Matt has bumped up a little bit from middle of the pack to kind of like mid-half, upper mid. And of course, Izzy went from like lower mid to bottom up to number 5. Big Izzy jump. People liking Izzy a lot more.
All right. Good for her.
Yeah, I support that as well. Yeah, Jared, you gotta shut up, kid. You gotta just stop talking. Stop talking. Some of those thoughts you got in your head, just keep it in your head. Just don't let them slip out. Don't you know?
You don't need to say everything.
You don't need to say a lot of things, Pooh. I'm pulling for you out here, bud. But just chill out for a little bit. Just a little bit.
I asked the audience to rate the episodes this week. Last week they were a 6.1. This week, a 4.5. Not
Yeah,
loving the episode.
accurate. They're not
A little
good.
high. Little
Also,
high.
I'm surprised that they were that high last week. Although, didn't we only see like the premiere or something
only
before?
the premiere.
The premiere and
The Sunday episode?
Sunday's episode.
Yeah, maybe Sunday episode. Okay, well
Sunday's
then
episode.
that makes sense. I guess there was less to be annoyed with.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. The episodes have been really horrible. So yeah, I get why people rated them low.
Yeah, absolutely awful. Watching that one competition with the Stranger Things for 40 minutes was insane. That was insane. But the eviction episode is unforgivable as well. Yeah, of course, that second episode, that Sunday episode that happened week 1 was probably rated high because it was everyone's first time getting to watch Cirie do Cirie things. Everyone was tuned in, and then the show said, "Yeah, we know what you like. We ain't giving you that." So I think the rating is a little high for me. I'd probably go down to like a 3.
Yeah, I think I would give lower as well because I don't even think that they're accurately covering like the strategy of what's going on the feeds. Like they're definitely not covering all like the various things that are happening on the feeds because the feeds are really exciting and there's a lot going on and they're not covering any of that, but they're also not even trying to like create an accurate narrative of what's going on. So it's been very bad. The competitions are generally bad, although I will say I did really appreciate the HOH competition. I thought it was creative. It was very different than things that they've normally done. And so I actually watched it. I actually was kept entertained. I thought that the like slow motion, like, I don't know, stilt walker with like the like mask on was a little much. I feel like they could have done something else. Like, I don't know, it just was very cheesy. But I thought the general concept of like, okay, listen to this clue and then find a hiding spot and like you're in this other place than the normal BB house. I thought it was clever. I thought it was entertaining. But yeah, the rest of it, not so much. Not so good.
Yeah. Well, I asked the audience to rate the feeds this week. Last week, the feeds were given a 9.2. I think the highest rating for feeds we've ever had. This week, an 8.0. So still a very high rating, but a bit of a drop. I have to imagine this is primarily because of the cuts.
Yeah.
You know, there was a big cut during the veto competition, and since then they have also been really bad about staying on conversations. Like they're just randomly cutting away from game conversations to nothing constantly. And it's very clear to me that it's because they're trying to like very proactively get away from anything that has to do with discussion about Matt in the veto competition, as well as the fact that, you know, maybe they're kind of annoyed that Luke's N-word slipped in. As well, and maybe they're trying to really get on top of anything controversial, which of course they're never going to. Like, I don't know why they even try.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's very funny when someone like Cory looks at the camera and says, "You know, to be clear," and then boop, it's just gone.
Yeah,
you know, like what? Wait, he was just about
clear about.
Right, he was just about to say the thing, and then we miss it. So yeah, I could see why the feed dropped, but again, that 9.2. Look, I know y'all tired of hearing me talk about Cirie, but come on. Y'all know why we all came here to see. You know what we came here to see. Stop playing with me. Stop playing on our top, man.
We lived in a blissful world that Tuesday night. It was right before Luke popped our bubble, but we were living in this wonderful world of Big Brother where the episodes hadn't soured us yet. The Luke hadn't soured us yet. Production hadn't soured us yet. You know, it was a great place to be.
Yeah,
we'll never forget it.
What was that other TMZ article? There were 2 TMZ articles. One ended up being about Luke, but there was one before that was like such a nothing burger that we were just like, I was like, this is the best they have. Like this, you know, this season is going to be so clean. And then I was like, oh, like literally that, like right after I thought that, it was like, oh, okay, there's Luke.
Oh yeah, it was okay. Breaking news: Felicia destroyed a mic.
Oh
again.
yeah, it's like that's what you have. Okay, that wasn't even intentional. Like it was not an intentional mic. I was like, okay, we're good on this season. What a great cast. And I was like, oh, never mind. We've got Luke here. Killed it.
Well, I asked the audience to rate the season as a whole so far. Last week, it was an 8.5. This week, a 7.8. So, yeah, it did take a little bit of a hit, but still pretty high overall. You know, a 7.8, you'd probably want to be a little higher this early on because it usually only drops from here. But we'll see how things go. I asked the audience to rate. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, Taran, do you ever take a look at the past stock watches and compare the stats? Look? I'm not trying to make more work for you and Melissa, but I actually am. Why I would love to see if y'all could go back through and maybe stock watch through the years, kind of like, you know, you know, 3 seasons ago versus this. What was happening? What made it so exciting? I think that's the kind of data that a nerd like me is looking for.
You know what?
Get to work.
I think we do often do comparisons of like this is what like last season was at this time, but we have probably gotten to a point where we could come up with like the average week 2 season rating. Are we above or below average at this point?
Right. Because we find ourselves comparing seasons all the time. Everybody has their season rankings and this, that, and other. But, you know, y'all have done such a good job of actually compiling data that you could actually say, like, no, this one was higher, you know, like it was better received by the public when they had the feeds versus, you know, people who go back and rewatch it later on who don't have the feeds and have to piece all the things together. Because imagine watching this season without the feeds. These first 2 weeks were nothing. I feel so bad for the new Survivor fans, the casuals who just got here, who don't know all the crazy stuff Cirie is doing behind the scenes, and they got to watch what we've been having to watch. So I'm just saying, again, not to make more work for y'all, throw them on in there, throw Puya in there, but, you know, get to work. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I asked the audience to rate Hisam's HOH reign. Last week, they rated Riley's HOH a 4.1 out of 10. This week, they gave Hisam a 2.9. A 2.9. It's low. Honestly, I feel like if this had happened tomorrow and like there hadn't been a lot of votes that had already come in before the flip had solidified, might have been even lower. I mean, as I said, this might be historically the worst HOH of all time, especially if he ends up leaving next week and the entire house flips against him. I mean, this is really bad. I mean, his entire alliance has turned on him for no particularly good reason. And it's entirely because of just his behavior and the way that he is interacting with other people in the game. And so it's not great. It's not good. Yeah.
Nobody wants to live with the HR manager. You know, it's just Toby from the office. You know, just it's not the rules thing. It's really just the way you present yourself when we're talking. We're supposed to be all in here. They'd like to treat themselves like they're a family or that they're all in this communal space. But Hisam is taking this very professional, you know, cut and dry conversation with people, and then it becomes very, you know, like, in a way, very authoritative, you know, to where it's like, you're not in charge of me. We're playing together, but we would like to have some say-so in the way we interact in this house. And for him coming in and being like, oh, this is what I want to know for you. And when I'm done talking to you, I'm done talking to you. Goodbye. You know, it's like, whoa, I'm a person still, you know, so all the chess moves and big brother strategy aside, still got to treat people like people. And I think he might have lost sight of that because I don't know if this would make me want him out this like soon, but it would definitely be one of those things where like, if I'm in the house with him, this is when he starts to work on my last damn nerve. So I totally get it.
Yeah. I also asked the audience to rate the Nether twist. How do we feel about the Nether region twist? A 3.5. People pretty nonplussed, pretty bored. Not really loving the Nether twist. Oh boy. Jared was sent away and then saved Jag because we'll never actually get somebody saving somebody that's in danger. And then, Jag prevented Bowie from competing in the veto competition. That's a huge move, and it's going to take up 10 minutes of the episode. Oh, boy. Yeah, so far, I agree. This has been very... look, I'm glad it's not breaking the game. Like, but it's definitely... It's a bunch of nothing so far.
I'm just shocked that they haven't shown us like the Nether region. I really thought that we would see some, you know, area or something where the house guest had to hang out, where they would like maybe do some sort of like competition or something to get something or do something.
Huge missed opportunity to not have the Nether region be like this, like really like red hot room with just like Jesse from Big Brother 10 like sunbathing. Like that's like that should be the Nether region, and the fact that they haven't done it is a little baffling.
There should be like something. I don't know. I just feel like it's odd that they're just like, oh yeah, they just like are going to some back like production room and just like sitting there. Like, I don't know. It feels weird. It also feels odd to me because I feel like they've been removed from the house, like, which also is kind of, it goes against what Big Brother is about. Like, they're no longer in the house, but we also don't know that they're not like, I don't know, talking to production or talking to people or talking or like going online. I mean, obviously, I don't think they are, but I think it's weird that it's not just some room in the house or something. I guess I hope that they gave them books or something so they're not completely bored and alone. I don't know. The whole thing is just very strange to just like take someone away. Like, I think it'd be one thing if you kept them in the house, but like, I don't know, made them wear like a silly costume or like made them not speak for a bit or something. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's odd to just take them away and not show us where they're being taken to and just like have us be okay with like, oh, I guess they're just like with production somewhere. I don't know. It feels weird.
They're wherever Sam was when she was in the robot.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we never got an explanation for that. Yeah, while she was riding around in the robot. But at least she still had an avatar in the house. You know,
at least she could talk to people.
Yeah.
They're just alone in a like little box. Like, I don't know. I mean, unless they have like books or something. I don't know. The whole thing is weird.
Yeah.
Well, I also asked, do you think Hisam made the best decision for his game with the veto? And 68% of the audience said yes, that he did make the right decision.
He shouldn't have won the veto.
Yeah.
That part.
Like, he should have absolutely thrown it. I just don't think it makes any sense. I mean, he is putting him the hugest target on his back. He's the only one who's won competitions in the game, basically, aside from what, Riley? I mean, I don't count all those initial ones where it was like the nomination thing, but it's just, you're putting yourself so far out there. I feel like Michael in Big Brother 23, like, he at least, you know, kind of tamped that down until he like felt like he needed to win in the end. And then he just kept winning and winning and winning because, like, you know, he would be like one of the last person remaining in the competition and he just like had to do it. But it feels odd this early in the game to put such a big target on yourself for really no reason. It wasn't like, oh, he's in danger, he needs this. You know, he didn't need it.
Yeah, he felt like he was in danger though with Riley, right? And so I guess I'll defend the audience a little bit on this one. If I have a clear target and they're on the block and I start to get wind that people don't want that person on the block, then yeah, maybe I win the veto to make sure they stay up there. You know, I don't know who was like else in his camp of let's get Riley out at that point. Then he kind of already declared his his target for the week. And if you use the veto on Riley and somebody else has to go up there, yeah, him surviving this week doesn't do him a lot of favors if he's been pissed off the entire house. I mean, he managed to do that anyway without it. So I guess to your point, Melissa, he didn't even need all of that. But I can see why he would want to win it. I just think that there are too many crapshoot competitions that you could luck up and win. And then people will give you credit for that win being some like level of skill or some level of like, oh, you're a comp beast. And then when you actually do need to win one, it makes you look so much worse. I think the same thing happened with Michael. There was a couple competitions where he just kind of won them. And it wasn't like any just amazing feat that Michael was so great. It was just he won that one. Now, when it was time for him to actually win stuff, to save himself, to save Brittany, then it's like, oh yeah, that guy's crazy. He's a comp beast. He's up to competition number 6. Like, yeah, but if he could give 2 back, I'm sure he would. So I don't know. I can see both sides, Melissa.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. I think people interpret the question differently. Some people interpret the question as like, did he make the best decision for the game once he had the veto? And some people interpret the question as just the veto in general. I think if you're looking at, the veto in general, he shouldn't have won, first of all. Once he did win, he shouldn't have made a dumb speech to piss off the entire house when not using the veto. And there's even maybe an argument to be made that he maybe should have used the veto on Cameron and replaced him with somebody like Matt. Granted, he said he wouldn't do that, and the entire house would have been pissed if he did that because of the Matt situation in the veto. But as the HOH, you never want to be in a position, especially this early on, where you are saying to people, because it's true, that if Cameron goes home, I'm screwed. If the wrong person gets evicted here, that is so terrible for me. You always want it to be okay either way. That was the intention behind the nominations in the first place. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't butter up the pawn and get them to want to work with you as much as possible. But if you have gotten to a place where it's do or die, that the vote goes through your way, then you start doing dumb things like winning vetoes you don't have to, threatening votes that you have to vote this way or I'll go after you, because it becomes so desperate that you need the vote to go your way. Ideally, as the HOH, you set things up in a way where you can take hands off and just work on relationships and set yourself up for the following week, and you're not desperately clinging to try and like force the vote to go the way that you need it to go. And so I think there's an argument there as well. I asked, who do you want to be evicted this week? Who do you want to be evicted between Cameron and Riley? 87% would like to see Cameron gone from the game over Riley.
And I love Riley. Good God Almighty. And I'm weird about the way that I feel because she reminds me of my kid.
But you know
It's
what?
Fucking weird.
But you know what? Like, maybe I'm a cold ass
I know it's
bitch,
not my
but
fault,
I don't care.
But it's
They don't care.
I don't care.
So funny.
They don't care. It's
I-
my
personally, I
favorite
don't.
sound. That's
my vote.
in my
I don't
eyes,
care.
that's already in the running for the soundbite tournament of BB25.
It already
Very
won,
good.
Taryn. It already
It's
won.
got
I'm sorry,
everything that you want.
Yes.
So I also asked, who do you want to see win HOH this next week? And the majority of the audience, even more than last week, 28%. So I guess a plurality of the audience, but most the person who won the most amount of votes, Izzy. People want to see an Izzy HOH.
boy.
They want to see Izzy, backdoor, Hisam. 15% said Cory in second place. 14% said Mimi. 14%. Third place.
I can see that.
Mimi would be an interesting one because she's not quite as set on backdooring Hisam as the rest. 11% said Matt. He's the one that a lot of people on Cirie's side are hoping wins so that he can take that shot at Hisam. So fairly straightforward there with the audience vote.
Yeah, I'll take a Cory HOH or a Mimi HOH. I don't. The Izzy HOH is chaotic, but still, it does feel like you're doing the other side's dirty work here, Izzy. Which okay, fine, you're not Cirie, so go ahead. But at the same time, where are your inroads if you're starting to take out people who were obviously not coming for you? So it's an interesting move, but I would like to see it. Sure, I'll watch. It's fine.
Let me tell you, if Izzy wins HOH, I'm going to call it right now. It is not a given that Hisam gets backdoored.
It
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
It could change. It could shift onto a lot of other people, I think. So stay tuned for that if it happens.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Any other major topics we should touch on before we start to rate these players?
Not particularly.
No,
All right.
I think we're gonna have a good time, and I think that maybe we have to talk about some of these Harry Potter houses at some point. I think we're gonna have to get into it when the time comes.
Oh boy.
All right. Well, let's then rate the players. This is the portion of the podcast where we rate the players from 1 to 10 based on how well we think they are doing in the game, where 1 is the worst. They have no chance to win. They've basically got 1 foot out the door, and 10 is the best. They're playing like the reincarnation of Dan Giesling, and they are well on their way to winning the game. That is how we do this. Each of the 3 of us will rate the players. The audience also voted and will contribute toward the rating. This rating will then impact the stock price of each player over on realitystockwatch.com. where you can buy and sell shares of the players and get a sense of what you would like from them. Okay, so let's kick it off with America. How do we feel about America? Last week, she got straight 5s across the board. It's very, very neutral on America overall. And I'm feeling like things were looking a little more bleak until this vote flip, and now things are looking a little more positive. In fact, just today, she's made some good connections to Izzy, to Felicia, and she's been talking to these people that have been worried about her for a while, and she's done a good job of blaming the reason why she hadn't talked to them before on Hisam. She's like, yeah, Hisam made me worried about you guys. That's why I never reciprocated your offer of an alliance. And they're like, oh my God, Hisam again.
We knew it. We knew it all along.
On top of that, she is working a bit more closely with Cory, and Cory is looking to take her deep into the game if possible. He's being a little too vocal about it in my eyes, but she is in a better spot there. She's also getting, I think, kind of close with Jag in a way that people don't really see quite yet. And also she's not a bad player. She's smart. She's just not very active yet, at least. So I'm not super low on America. I don't think that she should be in a ton of danger moving forward, but she does still have to worry about all of these structures being put in place without her because of her lack of active gameplay. So overall, I'm going to just stick with my 5 for America. Melissa, you're nodding. You agree?
Yep, I am sticking with my 5 as well. My opinion on America hasn't changed. I generally like her. I think she could go far just because she's pretty under the radar. But at the same time, she could kind of be an easy out because she's not super connected to people. So right now, I'm kind of in a wait and see situation. She is a fan of the show. I mean, she talks about watching live feeds. So I am very surprised that she's not doing more or really having more strategic conversations that are meaningful. But I do think it's also possible that she's doing the like lay low strategy where we've always talked about, you know, trying to blend in the beginning and then coming out halfway through. So it's totally possible that that's what she's doing. And I would love to see that. But at this point, I'm not seeing any proof that that is what's happening. So, you know, we'll wait and see. She's a 5.
Yeah, I'll go with a 5 here too. I was actually thinking about a 6 for a second, but I really feel like a lot of stuff is happening around her and she's not actively making it happen. And I think that if she keeps playing so passively, she's gonna run out of like runway very soon. Because I think she's in a good spot, you know, as far as like she's not anybody's number 1 target for the most part, but you know, letting this crazy stuff with Hisam work out, you know, if the flip happens, if Cameron's gone, if Riley's still around, and now Riley is loyal to the Cirie side, or at least to Cirie, then she might catch a stray, you don't know. And so she's not doing a lot to insulate from that, you know, I don't think. And so I appreciate her because you can tell that she knows the game, but she's definitely got to leave that room. Like she's got to get around and get in more people's pockets, you know, start making connections with other people strategically to where if that structure crumbles, you're not just like a missing piece. Because if I want to pick off somebody in the middle that doesn't bother anybody, right? Like if I just want to like maybe have an HOH that I can put up 2 people, like Taran said, let the house decide what happened. Why not America? You know, whatever, you know. So I think she's kind of putting herself in a position where she doesn't have too many things like insulating her from just a random stray attack. So 5 for me too.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely trying to use the strategy of laying low and then, you know, turning it up at the end. We've seen the danger of that even just within her own game. Prior to this flip, things were looking kind of bleak for her. A lot of people were talking about putting her up as a pawn, maybe even targeting her if necessary. And this flip kind of helped change a lot of things for her, but she wasn't a huge part of why it happened. Her information that she gave to Cory definitely helped. And she's doing a good job once she does get active, but the lack of active play is hurting her, I think, overall right now, and she'd be in a better spot if she was just playing a little more actively. And it also doesn't set you up very well for an end game run because the other active players have set their pieces up in place. And so once you finally wake up and start playing, you're playing from behind. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, for now, a 5, and the audience does agree. They gave her a 5 as well. So let's move on to Blue. Melissa, how do you feel about Blue? You are muted.
Thank you. I'm not so sure about Blue. That's really all I said. So it wasn't anything important. I feel like Blue is in a little bit of a better spot than she was last week, mainly because people seemingly want to work with her. You've got Jag and her making like a final 2 situation. They're talking with Hisam about, creating an alliance. Jared, they have their little like flirt mans. That's good for her to have, some sort of in with that other side of the house, even if it's not necessarily strategic yet. But at the same time, I feel like I'm not seeing enough from Blue herself that makes me think that she has the strategic chops. I just don't know if she really understands like what she's doing in this game. Especially when, her and Jag, I mean, we saw her and Jag multiple times talking about how like, oh, what if we like brought in Matt and brought in Riley and like tried to like always include other people in these alliances instead of just like trying to form their own stuff. It feels like they're still set on this original group and they're not willing to kind of go outside of it. So I think due to factors outside of Blue herself, which is other people wanting to work with Blue, I'm going to bump Blue up to a 5, but I don't know if I see Blue herself being all that strategic yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, I see that there were some 4s last week, but I'd probably go with 5 here too, for many of the same reasons that Melissa said, but mostly because this week could have been horrible, horrible for Blue. And Riley getting saved is very good for her. It really is. Riley's not coming after Blue anytime soon. And so that's one less person in the house who's going to target her. With Cameron, you really just didn't know. So if Cameron stays, it's not great. But if Riley stays, that could be a net positive. Because it's one more person to take the target off of her. Again, the Jared thing, it seems to be leading to something. And so if she can lean into that a little bit more, then maybe that'll do her some favors. But yeah, she's not actively doing anything that's wowing me to make me think that she's trying to win the game. It just feels like she's in survival mode right now, and this is all she has. This dividing line in the house, they really have to figure out a way to bridge that gap, or people like Blue in America are just going to get picked off in lieu of bigger targets. And honestly, Blue's a bigger target than America. So I'll say 5, but it's a conservative 5 for sure.
All right. Well, the audience gave Blue a 5 last week, despite our 4s, and this week gave Blue a 4, despite your 5s.
Hey.
And I think I'm with the audience on this one. I do think that the events of the last 48 hours have been good for Blue, but only in the sense that like if Blue was a 4 last week, I feel like she dropped to a 3 at the beginning of this week. I mean, things were looking very bleak. People were talking about targeting her soon, and they still want to after the Hisam thing is dealt with. And her gameplay is not changing. She's still not branching out and talking to those people. Even her own current potential showmance is continuing to talk about targeting her. And I think this will change if the showmance continues. I do think that Jared will want to eventually protect Blue, which would be huge for her. But as of right now, things are very dangerous. And in a situation where her side is an HOH and Hisam does end up staying, or they decide to change their minds and they don't want Hisam out anymore, I think Blue is the person they take their shot at. Cirie in particular, and this is the most important thing, does not like Blue. She hates Blue, and she wants Blue out as soon as she can. And we know that if Cirie wants something, she's probably going to get it at some point. So for me, I think Blue bounces back up to a 4 from the events of this flip, but I'm still not super positive on her quite yet. Let's move on then to Bowie. Chappell, how do you feel about Bowie?
I don't really know what to feel about Bowie. I think that Bowie is in a in an interesting position because the girls are fighting, and Bowie is not one of those. She has managed to get herself like onto this one alliance. People kind of look at her as a floater in a way, but she really is latched on to the bye bitches. That's her crew, and right now they're in control of the house, and so I appreciate her spot, but I can't tell you what Bowie has done that like strategically moves her anywhere above what we were just talking about with Blue or America. I think that if you want to strike against the Cirie side without pissing off Cirie, you take out Bowie. I think these people they're so far on the outskirts of their alliance that they don't even realize that, given the wrong HOH, you're next if you're not well insulated. And so I don't love her spot. Can't lie to you. But the question is, do I love her spot more than I love America and Blue? And I feel like here I am just going to give straight 5s. But yeah, I think, I give her a 5. I can't give her any lower than Blue and America because their side is actively losing a piece this week. But Blue needs to do something. I need her to do something. Aligning with Cirie is a good move, but I don't think that's enough to say that she's making any moves to win the game.
Yeah. So that's a 5 there for Bowie.
Yeah, I'll give it a 5. Again, conservative 5s. I don't really want to give anybody a 4 unless I'm like, bruh, what are you doing? And so for Bowie, I'm just kind of like, she's just there.
All right. Well, the audience, not quite as high on Bowie. The audience gave Bowie a 4. And I can tell you it was almost a 3. Almost a 3 for Bowie. Here's the deal though. I'll go to the 3.
You doing it?
I'm doing it. I gave her a 4 last week, and I think her position has deteriorated. I think her game is just it's not great. I mean, literally today, in the midst of everything, the backyard is closed, and they're trying to flip this vote, and they're moving around from room to room, trying to get privacy to have these conversations. And Bowie is driving everyone up a wall because she, as she says, I'm just roaming today, just circulating, constantly interrupting game talk. And it's very frustrating for the viewer and also the people doing the game talk. But more importantly, she's being left out of this flip. She's being left out of a lot. Nobody wants to talk game with her. I do think she's capable of talking game, but the respect for Bowie is really low right now. And she is the most consistent name brought up as somebody that people want to put on the block, not to target her, but as a pawn. And the fact that that is happening is not good. And on top of that, unless she manages to like win some respect in the game, I have a hard time seeing her win a jury vote. Very far away right now, but she is definitely the person least likely, I think, to win a jury vote at this point in time. On the bright side, she does have them convinced that she's in her 30s. So good on her for that.
Which is wild, but okay, girl.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
Can't see it.
Melissa, what do you think about Bowie?
I was gonna give a 5, but I think you're right in that it's very significant that she's not being included in this big flip. The fact that they don't even want to talk with her about it is not a good sign. And the fact that they're saying, well, we'll let her know at the last minute. You don't want to be in that position, especially because she's the only one. It's not like, oh, well, it's just us and we'll tell everyone at the end. It's literally Bowie, and then they're trying to get Red to like not vote. So I think that's really not a good spot. And I was gonna give a 5, but I think when looking at America and Blue, at least people like want to be working with America and Blue. And even though Bowie isn't really doing anything like wrong per se, she's not really doing anything, and people aren't wanting to work with her. So with Blue, it's like she's not really doing anything, and but people want to work with her, so at least she gets that bump up. But with Bowie, I think I'm gonna give the 4 because I think you want to be in the know, and if you're not being included, you're being left out, and that's not good for your game.
All right, there it is for Bowie. Let's move on then to Cameron. Oh, Cameron. Cameron has a 2 from the audience. Down from the 3 they gave him last week, and I'm pretty sure I said last week Cameron's downfall is incoming soon. Here it is, as soon as it could have been. I'm obviously tempted to go to a 1 here. I think that he has put himself in this spot with his weird behavior from last week. However, he's actually been mostly fine this week. He hasn't done a lot of campaigning, but he, I think, kind of correctly assessed that he shouldn't because it would only make things worse for him. He's done some sketchy things. He's not been a good player by any means, but obviously this flip was not like his doing as much as it was Hisam's. Like I prefer to save the ones for it's like you really took yourself out of the game. So for me it's going to be a 2, which also makes this a 5, 4, 3, 2 in my ratings here so far, which may or may not have influenced that decision. Melissa,
Wait till you give Cirie a 1 next. I see you, Taran.
Oh no.
Oh, no. Maybe it's
maybe a 10.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Ooh,
There you go.
Okay, that works.
Look out, Cory.
Yeah, really. So for me, I'm gonna give Cameron a 2 as well. It probably would have stayed a 3, but now you've got this flip happening. He might go home. He could also stay, but even if he stays, it feels like if people are this willing to flip, that's not a good sign for Cameron's game moving forward. So he's a 2 because he's also not doing anything. And I get that it's like he's intentionally not doing anything because he's a pawn, but you've really got to be making sure everything is still good all week long, even if you're a pawn.
Yeah, this is 100% somebody who should be getting a 1 here, because I think that the 2 was deserved last week. I think that this week you're sitting on the block. There's a flip about to happen, and you have no control over whether or not people want to keep you or let you go. Yes, you are a pawn for Hisam, but Hisam does not have control of the house right now. So you being his pawn does not matter. You can try to appease him, but everyone is just going to do what they want to do. And you're not even aware of like where the house is going. The house wants to flip on Riley. And at the very least, you could be stirring the pot or something like that, right? They want to save Riley and stuff. You just say something, do something, pinch somebody, throw a rock. I don't know. So I think our guy might be going home here, and I think he's done nothing to change his fate. So I'd give him a 1.
All right, a 1.
Also
from Chappell.
So his most redeeming quality is that he's a Hufflepuff, right? Is that what we're getting at here?
I don't believe he's a Hufflepuff. I think Mike said earlier he's a Slytherin.
They always try to put like evil people on Slytherin just because we got like 2 or 3 evil, like bad, historically bad, like, houses named. All I'm saying is all Slytherins ain't bad. This man is very much a Hufflepuff. The way he talked like Bob Ross, that's Hufflepuff energy. He look, I'm sorry. When they said it, I was like, no one should be shocked here. There are bad Hufflepuff. Look, there are good people on both sides. There are also bad people on both sides. He's just one of the bad ones, and that's okay. The man deserves a 1, if nothing else, for being a Hufflepuff.
All right.
And that is coming from your neighborhood Slytherin.
Yeah, you see, Chappell just doesn't want to claim him. He's like, I'm a Slytherin, and this guy is not one of us.
Yeah, duh. We got Merlin and Voldemort. You think we got Cameron? Stop it. Get out of here.
All right, let's then talk about Cirie. How do we feel about Cirie this week? It's an interesting one. I gave Cirie a 9 last week. Honestly, I would easily give Cirie a 9 or even a 10 this week if the ideal was happening in my eyes, which is Riley stays and Hisam is on board, and the plan is to take more shots at the other side by using Hisam as a shield and a sword, right? That's the ideal move for me, from my perspective, for Cirie. She doesn't see it that way, and I mean, this is kind of the problem with the Stockwatch when we're rating Cirie, is that, like, Cirie's probably better at this than me. So what am I gonna do?
We should ask her, Taran. What does she think about her game so far, Cirie?
But I only have my own perspective to go off of. So You know, I do think that I have to be a bit lower. I do think that it's the wrong move for her. Strategically, I think that the path forward is a lot easier in other directions, and part of me does feel like the Survivor experience is getting in the way of the Big Brother analysis. That like, you know, she's really stuck on this idea of like blindsiding Hisam, making sure he knows that he's not in control, which is fun. I'm happy about it. But it's not super necessary. I mean, there's not a lot that Hisam can do if he finds out. You know, in Survivor, you want to blindside people because they might have an idol. They might be able to like, you know, sway some votes back over potentially. But like, you know, I don't think that I think that she's kind of playing a Survivor game in Big Brother, and she's still trying to fully adapt it. That's the read that I have from that. That said, I think everything I said at the beginning of this podcast still is true. I think she's still in a fantastic spot overall. It's just not as good as I think it could be. And I think that she still has massive advantages in her relationship with Jared, the connections she's made with Izzy and with Felicia, and the fact that she is still very well insulated within a large part of her group. She still has Cory working with her. I think that like there's still plenty of avenues for Cirie to do really well. And I'm not quite ready to like go too far down on the player I still think is in the best position in the game by a decent margin. So this week I'm going to give Cirie an 8. And I think that it's possible that this does blow up and that my instincts are right. And maybe I even go further down from there. But I do want to make sure I'm accounting for the fact that she has these paths in front of her because of the player she is and the position she was already in. And so just because I'm disagreeing with the direction that she's taking doesn't mean that she can't find herself in these positions again in the future. She's the one that got herself there in the first place. So it's going to be an 8 for me, kind of a tentative rating for now while things are still so up in the air. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
This is tricky for me because I think that while this individual move isn't really necessarily the right way to go about this move with the blind side, I think like I feel like I want to go higher on my rating for her just because it's become so apparent to me that she is clearly in the best spot in the house by far, and she controls everything. So it's like both those elements are making me want to bump my score up because, you know, first of all, this flip was not going to happen without her. She was the control that made everything happen at this point. So it shows how everybody, you know, listens to her and wants to do what she says. And then also the fact that all the conversations not had with Cirie, but outside of Cirie, everybody's like, I feel really good about Cirie, or like, let's pull Cirie in. I'd love to have Cirie in on this. And then everyone wants to involve Cirie. And, you know, even some people were saying like, oh, I'm not worried about Cirie, which is like, well, you should be worried about Cirie. And I'm shocked that you're not. So I just think that all that makes me think that even if this is not really a great idea to blindside Hisam, which, by the way, that might not even happen. It might end up being that they talk to Hisam and it ends up being a different way that the flip goes about. But even if it ends up
still die.
Right, exactly. And we don't even know. But like even if it does go through as we think it's going to go through right now, and they do blindside Hisam, I don't really even think Cirie will be the target of his like ire. Like I just don't think that she is going to be the one who's out front, like, oh, it was her. I think there's going to be other people that Hisam is upset with. So, and I also think if Hisam was upset with Cirie, I think people would rally around Cirie. It wouldn't just be like, oh, yeah, it was her, get her out. She's just got so much power right now. So for me, all those factors weighing on each other, I am going to bump my score up to a 9.
There you go. A 9 from Melissa. Chappell, what are your thoughts?
Y'all know what I came here to do. Let's stop playing around. Let's
Oh
stop.
my God.
Y'all know why y'all brought me here. Listen, nothing in this house happens without Cirie's blessing. If Cirie don't want it to happen, it don't happen. Cirie doesn't like your show, man. She's gonna get your girlfriend out. You know, like it's Cirie. This is Cirie, and this is what she does. She wanted this flip. She's demanding that it's unanimous, and that's all because we are just at her whim. Whatever she decides today, and they know it. And to your point, Melissa, I think this is really the sticking point for me is that if this does flip, if all this shit goes to hell, they're still going to rally behind Cirie next week. Could you imagine being the person who put Cirie on the block? Who does she sit next to where people are like, you're right, she needs to go? Are you crazy? Give my mama a 10. She's twice the player as America and twice the player as Blue. Give her a 10. 10.
Wow.
Y'all know
What
what
a
y'all
sound
brought me
effect.
here. I hope you bought that stock, baby.
A 10 from
10.
Chappell to Cirie. The audience, a little bit more on my side on this one. They gave Cirie an 8.
Boo audience. Boo audience. I had to look. I could see where the tide was going a little bit, so I just need to balance things out. Honestly, objectively speaking, I do think that she's playing with fire here, because there is a world where Hisam doesn't forgive her for this, but I agree that there's probably no world where he could do anything about it. And so to see somebody wielding this much power in the game, I have to support it, especially because it's Cirie and she has her son in the house. I'm not going to just say this is all Cirie magic. There is a little bit of, a little extra assistance in there too. But all that being said, I don't think she could be doing any better. I think that there are more probably ideal moves, but I think for a player like Cirie, you're just like, see where the chips fall.
Well, and that's the thing. I think, again, the point about this is how Cirie has operated in the past, and she's still done really well, is that, like, I think one of the things that makes Cirie such a great player is that she's capable of taking huge risks like this, going for massive swings, because, and we'll probably see this, she's going to be way better at damage control and figuring out how to pick up the pieces after everything blows up than anybody else in that house. And so because of that, because even though she already had a nice, house of cards, she can be like, you know what? This one isn't perfect. Let's blow it all down and I'll just make a new one because I'm capable of that. And so we'll see if that happens, especially here in Big Brother. But I think that's what has happened in the past with something like Survivor. And I think that we'll have to see if it happens again here on Big Brother. So let's talk about Cory. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Cory?
I think Cory has done a good job of, going around this week and talking with a lot of different people. I mean, this could have been a really bad week for him with Hisam winning, because Hisam and Cory, I guess, didn't get along at first, mainly from Hisam's side. And so that could have been an easy situation where Hisam's like, okay, well, now's my opportunity. I'm getting Cory out. And Cory was able to actually create a sort of working relationship with Hisam where they're having like good conversations. And, we were all worried when Cory went in for his initial conversation with Hisam, like, oh God, how's this going to go? And it went fine. And Cory was able to kind of do some damage control. And I think that that's, he's done a good job with that, as well as, creating these other relationships with other people like America or Mimi or whoever. I think he's done really well so far in that. I think, he's still a little bit on the outs of everything. He's not fully involved. And it does feel a little bit like he doesn't have anyone completely as his own, like, number one or his own ally. Like, he thinks Jared's his number one, but that's not really the case. And he tells Jared a lot, which maybe is not the best. But overall, hearing his, cam talks also has been really helpful to understand that, like, he gets it. He knows what's going on, and he knows a little bit of what he has to do moving forward. He's not like completely 100% like, okay, this is what I have to do. Like, here's my plan, but at least we can get some insight into what he's thinking. So I am very impressed with him. So I'm going to give him a 7.
7. All right, Chappell.
Yes, I am very impressed with Cory as well. It's a wonder how you can do when you're not on the block randomly and it's not your fault, right? Just because you got dragged to hell one time in a competition you had nothing to do with. So, we get to see him maneuver. I think Cory works really well when he has accurate information. And so, you know, given that he does have pretty accurate information on most of the things going on in the house, yeah, he's been moving in a way that I would like to see him continue to move. But again, with him being kind of on the outskirts of this, the what is it, the Bye Bye Bitches Alliance, it's like, yeah, you might get picked off. Nobody wants to piss off Cirie. If you go after Cory, that might annoy her, but I think she'll live, you know. And I think vice versa. If Cirie or Felicia or somebody like that were in Cirie's main alliance, were to target that side, but they didn't want to piss off Riley too much, I think Cory could, you know, find his downfall there. I can't give him an 8 because of that. I really think that like he's doing well for his position, but I don't think that it's a solid position. I really think that some things could go the wrong way and leave him stranded. And so I'll say this. I do like the work he did with Hisam. You know, they've gone from Hisam absolutely hates this person and wants him out the house to he didn't end up on the block, and they have a very professional working relationship as you would have with your HR director. And so I think that merits a 7 for me too.
All right. The audience. Now listen, Cory on the feeds talked about how he predicted that he had a 6 in the Stockwatch last week.
Okay.
He was correct. And then he requested from the audience, he said, hey, can you guys get me up to a 7 next week? Can you pull through for me? And I mean, at some point, we're going to have to bring up some charges of insider trading. But for now, yeah, it worked. He got a 7 from the audience.
Wow.
Yes!
Wow. Okay.
Hoes, we out here. Yes.
There's a lot to say about Cory. I've said a lot of it already. I'm very impressed overall. Now that he's settled into the game, he's doing a really good job socially. You can really see why this archetype tends to work out if they're talented, because somebody like Cory is not going to get cast on the show unless he has a spark to him. He has a charisma to him. But in the first week, he was kind of struggling to show that, in part because he was on the block, in part because I think he was probably just nervous. But because of that, people are at first wary. I don't know about this smart nerd kid. But then eventually they realize, actually, nobody seems to like him. He's not that dangerous. And as they're coming to that realization, he's actually coming into his own and being more dangerous. And so I think it's a good like timing kind of thing in that way, if you're able to survive that first week. And I think he's done a really good job socially. I think he's done a really good job strategically. He's consistently bringing up really good points. He knows a lot of ins and outs of the game. And I think that, you know, if Cirie wasn't there with Jared, he'd be in a considerably better position because he's playing really well and probably actively one of the best players in the game. That said, there's a lot of dangers lurking around every corner for Cory. In particular, this thing with Jared and Cirie and the fact that they're sharing information and any wrong step could send him right off of a cliff. On top of that, this flip, while potentially very advantageous for Cory for those reasons, he does have to be wary of the fact that it was his information that kicked the whole thing off. And I think he's a very easy scapegoat for Cirie and Izzy and the rest of them when Hisam comes to them pissed off and they say, listen, the whole thing started because Cory told us about what you told him about people saying his name. And that could really send him off into the Cory direction. There's a lot of different things that could happen there. His position is precarious. I think he knows it to some degree. And it also still doesn't have a good long-term outcome. I also don't love that he's talking a little too much about long-term to people like Jared that he knows is a threat to his own game. So with all of that said, I'm going to agree with my 7 from last week. I feel like I gave him a 7 last week because I saw in him what I'm seeing now this week in terms of his gameplay. But positionally, he is too dangerous a spot to go any higher than that for me as of right now. So it's a 7 there for me for Cory. Let's move on then to Felicia. Chappell, how do you feel about Felicia?
Y'all already know why I came. No, I'm joking. I'm not going to give Felicia the same as Cirie, but I am going to commend Felicia on this ridiculous spot that she's in. She's tied to one of the best players in the house, if not, as you can see with my 10, the best player in the house. And I don't think she's anybody's target anytime soon. So I love that for her because there are so many people who are battling, and I just don't think you're going to get that much momentum on getting Felicia out. That being said, I don't know what Felicia can do here. I think that her biggest benefit is that everybody underestimates her. They look at her as somebody who cannot win the game, maybe somebody who's not active, maybe like a Felicia type, maybe in a past season or something like that, where she's just laying around not doing anything. But being in the bye-bye bitches, she is in the dominant alliance. And being with Cirie, she is in the dominant alliance. And so I will give her credit for that as that much. I see last week, it was kind of teetering around 7s. I don't think she's going to be as active or as effective as Cory, but I think she's in a better position than him. And so that's why I'll give him her 7 as well.
All right, Melissa.
It is not my turn.
It is not your turn.
It's the audience's turn.
There's you might have noticed a hesitation in my voice as I went, this was the wrong word to say.
Yeah, well, I'm going to call you out on it. Because also, this was like the one person that I was like, I'm going to see what everyone else does. And then I'll figure it out. Good thing I'm going last. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, Melissa, go ahead.
I was like putting in the number at the same time. And I was like, wait a minute. The audience gave Felicia a 6. Same as last week. But it was close to a 7.
Okay.
For me, I'm also between a 6 and a 7 for Felicia. I think that she has played worse this week than she did last week. She was on the block last week, but I thought she played very well that week being active. I think she's still fairly active. I love that she's made a final 2 with Cirie. I love that she's an integral part of Cirie's plans for the long term. I love that she is still making moves, through the house, making relationships and connections. She has started to annoy Cirie a little here and there. Just today, Cirie was like, she drives me crazy sometimes, but I love her. I love her. My biggest issue with Felicia's game is that on one hand, we've talked about how she can win a jury vote. The age thing, if anything, is I think a good thing for her because there's a lot of respect for Felicia, the way she carries herself. A lot of people like her and respect her in the game. They talk to her as a game player in the game. I think that she can win a jury vote. However, when you look at like the people she's currently planning to go to the end with, I don't think she's beating Cirie in a jury vote.
No.
I don't know if she's like gonna beat like Jared in a jury vote when Cirie's on the jury, if that's the case, right? So like, then it's like, okay, well, who is she getting there with? Especially if she's not going to be able to win the final 3 HOH, which it's probably pretty unlikely given how immensely physical those competitions tend to be. So it's like, who can she get to the end with that is willing to take her to the final 2 that she then also can beat? And that's when things get a little more niche, a little trickier. That said, it's a long way away from right now. And so I'm not going to penalize her too much for it. I'm also going to give her a 7.
Yeah, the reason why I didn't want to go next was mainly because I am between a 6 and a 7 as well. I just feel like I don't think she's playing as well this week because I just haven't really seen that much strategy talk from her this week. I feel like she hasn't been making as many connections. And, I just feel like last week, and maybe it's because she was on the block last week that it was like, okay, we're seeing a lot of her. We're seeing like what she can do. And I was pretty impressed. But this week I haven't seen that much of her. And that's why I'm a little like, I don't know what's going on here. However, I still think she's in a good spot. It doesn't really seem like people are trying to target her anytime soon. So for now, I'm going to stick with a 7, but it's like on the verge and we'll see how next week goes.
All right. Well, let's then move on to Hisam. Hisam, the audience not feeling great about Hisam. They gave him a 5 last week, but this week they gave him a 3. 3 for Hisam there from the audience. From my perspective, I think a 3 is a little generous. I think that if we're talking about what is potentially an all-time bad HOH reign, I would love to give him a 1.
Drag him.
I would love to, and I'm very tempted.
Do it.
However, the flip isn't like fully locked in yet. And there's still, I think, some opportunities for him to bounce back from this. So I've been back and forth. You know, it's not a situation where like sometimes somebody's ruined their game and it's irreparable. I don't think that Hisam's game has been irreparably ruined. I think that like there's been a lot of momentum, a lot of building to this moment, a lot of scapegoating of Hisam for things that he sometimes hasn't even done at this point. And if he were to say win the veto next week, or maybe even something else happens and he's not as much of a target, I think he can kind of settle back in and still be in a really bad spot. And he's played really, really poorly. But like, I think his gameplay this week has been a 1 for sure. I think his short-term safety is like a 1, maybe a 2. You know, long-term, it's probably around a 2. Overall, I just don't feel like if this was the end of the week when he's being blindsided unanimously, I'd happily give him a 1. And I'm probably gonna look back at this week and be like, man, I wish I was represented as a 1 there. But like right now, I can't justify it in my own head. So I'm gonna give him a 2.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with the 2. I mean, even okay, so it's a 2 for sure if this flip goes through, because you know, especially if they blindside him. I guess it's more if the blindside goes through. But even if the flip doesn't go through, I think the fact that they were talking about it, they were working through it, they were doing all this without him involved and actively trying to blindside the HOH, even if it doesn't go through, that's not a good sign for him. He won the HOH, he won the veto, he made that speech. I mean, he's making himself a huge target. He's making himself appear as a huge threat. So I don't see him lasting all that long in this game unless he like wins every single week. But I feel like people are worried about him. And, you know, the fact that he made all those rules and then went against those rules, the whole thing was just a bad HOH week, to the point where everyone is talking about flipping the vote on him and blindsiding him. That's not good. So, you know, for now, I'm going to give him a 2, but it could go down next week.
All right, Chappell.
Yeah, I actually think the flip happening is probably, you know, better for him. Not that he like not getting out his target. By no means should he want Riley in the house still. But if the flip doesn't happen and Riley goes home, he's going to think that he was effective this week. And he's not going to know to repair some of these people who are going to be actively targeting him moving forward. Like, yeah, it happens and you got away with it, but everyone is sharpening their knives. The damage is done. So regardless of not, you know, whether or not they go through with the move, they already hate him. And so I think this has been just a horrible week for him. I didn't even think it could get this bad. Like, how are you the HOH and you completely lost everybody? And all you had to do was be kind to people, you know, and it's just like, he just kind of lost himself in HOH-itis. We've seen it before, but never to this extent. I will not give him a 1 because I know he's not going home right now. And there is room for him to repair these relationships after this week, but it'll be tough. So he has to get a 2 for me.
All right. Yeah. And I'll say again, I think that like, it's honestly pretty likely that we will look back at this week and say, that's a 1 week for Hisam.
Yeah.
But right now, a lot of these are, if this happens, it's a 1. If it goes through the way we think it might, it's a 1. And that uncertainty, in my eyes, needs to be accounted for here. So there we go. For Hisam, it's a 2 overall. Let's talk about Izzy. Because last week we gave Izzy a 3. We were not super high on Izzy. I continue to not be super high on Izzy. You know, Izzy did something today. They were in the have not room, you know, having their conversations. They were talking with Riley and having the conversation about like, if we save you, you need to help us. And Jag came in and kind of interrupted a little bit. And they were kind of talking with Jag, kind of not talking with Jag. And Jag went to go do the kick your butt thing. And Izzy just kind of like, she was feeling hot, you know, in the moment. And she was like, "Don't do that right now. Jesus, everyone's gonna know we're in here. Stop with that stuff." Then like back to Riley, and it's like these are the people you're trying to make a bond with right now because your life is gonna be in their hands after you help them out. Like, let's keep it calm. Like let's not be rude to Jag. And that's just kind of, that's just Izzy. That's just how she tends to operate. She gets very excited about things. She gets very worked up about things in a very entertaining way. But I do think she is going to be the person that takes the most amount of heat for this flip. I think that if things go down the way that Mimi is worried about, I think that like Izzy is the person that gets that shot taken at her. And when that happens, I think she goes down with the ship and keeps the secret all the way down to the end. And I think that the chances of Izzy winning this game are so low because she wants to go to the end with Jared and Cirie and happily kind of lose to them. That like she would have to have other people take Jared and Cirie out without knowing their secret over her. And that seems pretty unlikely at this point in time. So I'm still pretty low on Izzy overall in terms of like her win equity in this game, her current position, the way that she's been playing. I think I have to stick with a 3 until she changes her game around. Listen, I love watching Izzy, but like until I feel like she has any chance to win this game, it's gonna be tough for me, I think. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel very similar. I think that Izzy is fairly hard to have a conversation with. Like, look, I as much as I appreciate what Izzy is bringing to the feeds and what Izzy is bringing generally to the game, I think that it seems, as a viewer, it seems very difficult to have a conversation with Izzy because I feel like she always gets worked up. It always gets worked up over whatever you said. And it's always like bringing it up to here when it's just like, could be just a calm conversation, and is always mad about something. She's always saying, I'm pissed. No, I'm mad. I'm mad. And it's like, well, why are you mad? Like, you don't need to be mad. Just calm down. And so it turns from a conversation of like, hey, we need to talk about like this person or whatever, to being like, no, you don't understand why I'm mad right now. And it's like, okay, now I'm calming you down. Now I'm talking to you about why you're mad instead of talking about like the original topic. And so I just feel like I can imagine that being very difficult. Like, and being like, I don't want to be the person to bring Izzy information because Izzy will just get worked up and get mad at me. And even if Izzy's like, no, I'm not mad at you, I'm mad at this other person, she's still like directly talking about how she's mad to you and being worked up to you. So I just feel like I think that's going to end up biting her in the game. So I'm a little worried about her and about her position. And I think you're absolutely right. I think if this flip goes through and this blindside goes through, I think Izzy takes the heat, which concerns me. However, it's like, we don't even know if this is going to happen. This is tricky because I feel like I'm sitting over here giving Bowie a 4 and then giving Izzy lower than Bowie. I don't know if that's the one thing Bowie's got going for her, is that she's kind of like in the background and isn't doing much of anything. So like maybe that helps her. But with Izzy, at least Izzy's got some allies. But it just seems like anytime someone says they like want to work with Izzy, Izzy kind of like shoots herself in the foot by getting heated or getting worked up or talking like she talks like through people. It seems like it's like she has 2 different conversations. So it ends up being like this person comes to talk to her about how like I wanted to bring this to you about like I wanted to bond with you or whatever. And then she talks like a separate conversation at the same time, thinking that she's addressing this issue, but really is just talking like right past the person. I don't know if I'm like making sense, but it just feels like Izzy is difficult to have a conversation with. And I think that'll bleed into the strategy of everything. And people might start to view Izzy as a liability and as someone that they can just let's just get Izzy out now before she turns on us or whatever. I think I'm going to stick with my 3 just because I'm really worried for Izzy with this flip. But that could go up. That could go up. So yeah, I don't know.
All right.
I was kind to the people who I feel like are basically just position themselves into a spot and are doing nothing. And even though they should actively be doing more, I was very kind by giving them 5s. I think that Izzy potentially should actively be doing less. And I think that her in motion is worse than they are stagnant. I think that if she could just settle into a spot, a lot of things will be okay. But I really think that she cannot. She does not have the ability to do that just yet. Maybe she will fall into that. She does have the benefit of being aligned with Cirie, but it doesn't behoove Cirie to save Izzy. You know, if she pretends to save Izzy and then Izzy gets voted out, it's not the worst thing in the world losing the person who has Cirie's big secret. So she's not completely out of the water when it comes to the Cirie relationship as far as the Cirie Jarrett, Izzy, you know, Fields family bond. So I don't love her spot. Like you said, she is the figurehead of this alliance. Like, I think this is Izzy and company. You know, like Cirie's in charge, but Izzy is the one that people want out. I can't give her a 5 just because we could get off of this right now and she could just go upstairs and just start yelling at somebody about nonsense and then go back downstairs and tell everybody that she did it. And we'd be like, oh, that Izzy, she's so wild. She's so spunky. She's so funny. That Izzy is so crazy, but also it's really bad, you know, and she's going to become a liability eventually. As a person who would be a liability in a Big Brother house, I know me. You don't give me a 5, you give me a 4. I would give Izzy a 4 here.
All right, a 4 from Chappell. The audience last week did give Izzy a 4, and this week they like her better. They gave her a 5. A bit higher on Izzy this week from the audience. So she will move up a bit here overall. Let's move on then to Jag, who has had quite the week of ups and downs. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Jag?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I feel like Jag is a smart guy, but I just feel like he's not seeing the whole picture of what's going on around him. I feel like he's kind of stuck on like the original alliance plan and isn't willing to pivot at all. It feels like when people are offering him like, hey, what if we work together or something? He's like, yeah. But also like, wouldn't it be cool if we like brought Matt in or whatever? It just, I don't know. I feel like he's not just focusing on like, okay, I feel like he needs to just let that go and be like, okay, that didn't work out. Clearly that like, that's not it. Riley might even be going home. Like I need to figure out something else for my game. And it feels like he's not doing that. And then he's like making a final 2 with Blue when I don't think that's necessarily the best thing for his game. I just feel like he needs to branch out more. And the fact that he's not doing that is concerning. And also the fact that like, when I would think he'd be like, okay, I need to find a way to save Riley. Riley is good for my game. Like Riley and I used to be like super close, maybe not so much anymore, but they were. Like it feels like he wasn't really trying to do that. Maybe he was, but it wasn't making any headway. And he just seemed to be having just normal conversations or just talking to Riley about like, yeah, like what can we do? Whatever. It didn't feel like he actually had a plan or any means of going about saving Riley. So I just feel like I don't feel as confident in his gaming ability anymore. And I think for me, people, God, I kind of want to change my Blue score at this point because I feel like everybody else is like going lower. Can I go back and change my Blue score? Or is it too late? Did I already lock it in?
What were you going to change it to?
I want to change it to a 4 because I feel like even though she has the Jared connection, I just feel like it feels odd to me to give Jag a lower score than Blue. And I want to give Jag a 4.
No, I definitely agree with you there. I was sitting here listening to you talk about it, and the whole time I'm thinking, Jag's not playing great. He's not playing great, but is he playing to the same level as Blue? And I'm thinking, well, Blue's not as active as Jag, but what is Jag really actively doing? And so, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I don't really know what to do with him.
Yeah, because it's like I feel like he's a smart guy, but he's just not willing to go along with the game. I feel like he's not willing to be like, okay, that alliance, that 8-person alliance, that onion structure, that's the past. Now we need to do something else because that clearly didn't work. Like, if he just would let all that go, I feel like people would see him as his own player. But I feel like they're not seeing him as his own player because he's so connected with that past structure and won't let it go, that they're just like, okay, I don't know about this guy. I don't know. Taran, what? Taran,
I'm not
what?
gonna lie. I don't remember what we have decided in the past about changing scores, but we can, if the audience wants to quickly weigh in, if the chat wants to weigh in, yes or no, do you think she should be able to change the score? We can maybe get a sense of how they're feeling here.
I would be fine with it as someone on the panel. I'd be okay with it. You know,
it seems like people are okay with it.
Yeah, it don't bother me none. Look, who really out here going to bat for Blue?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of yeses.
Like, I don't think it really matters, but yeah, I think I want to put Blue and Jag both as 4s.
All right, there you go. So that will change Blue down to a 4.
Sorry, everybody.
And we'll kick off Jag here with a 4. Chappell, what are your thoughts?
I'm in the same boat as Melissa, because I gave Blue a 5, being nice, and now I'm like, dang, do I want to be just as nice to Jag? Jag has been trying to make this 8-person alliance happen. It's never going to happen, and that's the issue here. He feels like the more people he has in this one alliance, he's in the middle of it. So I keep adding people, and none of these people are going to put me on the block. But those people don't care about it. They don't care about that alliance anymore. It's not a thing. He could have easily been on the block this week. Easily, it could have happened. It could have been him. And so, don't get me wrong, Jared did save him, whatever. But it could, it's not like he's doing anything to make these people feel so much better about him to where they would be saving him and going out on the limb for him. But I was so kind to everybody else, and now I'm like, but I could also change it like Melissa did. That's so then I can give Jag a 5, and I feel better about it.
Man, I was the only one with foresight here, apparently.
Yeah. The Jag thing is interesting because, again, I think in a general sense, having a huge alliance that you're in the center of is cool. But he doesn't know he's not in the center of that alliance. The alliance that he thinks exists does not exist. And so he's just fighting to keep some type of structure when there's nothing. There's just nothing there. Look at all the people he's aligned with. They're fighting for 5s and 4s and 3s on this chart. That's not good. Your alliance, and if you're the best out of that entire alliance, that's even worse because you might get targeted. So yeah, I can't. Man, okay, Taran, I gotta move. Oh, dang, but then I have to move them all down. Put them at 5-2. Put them at 5-2. I can't change all of that. Yeah,
you go through and then you're like, I mean, that's really on me because I do my ratings in real time. I don't like prep them beforehand, so it's like, because of that, if I go through and then I'm like, wait, this doesn't add up, I kind of have to like go versus everyone else. I don't know.
Yeah, he's in a super mid alliance, if not a bad alliance, and so being a part of that alliance makes him bad just by default. I mean, he could be next. The wrong HOH, the wrong veto win, and he could be up on the block with nowhere else to go. And it wouldn't even be any of his doing. He wouldn't be able to stop it if it happened. So I'm not a fan of his position, but he's not Cameron, so I'll be kind.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering now. I think we did have a rule that we shouldn't change, but I think that was based on like if there was new information. Like
right. Yeah,
if somebody started talking about targeting Blue, we couldn't be like, oh well, now we should downgrade Blue.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's what we had agreed.
I've seen us change ratings before. I mean, we've definitely changed ratings before. Yeah. I just don't know. I think I don't know.
Yeah. Look, I think it's fine. It's week. It's week 2.
It's not like we've locked them in and then people have bought stocks already and then we're like, actually go back and change. Like once the podcast is over, I think that's when it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So the audience did give Jag a 5. And I agree with the audience on this one. I also give Jag a 5. I think that he is in a better spot than Blue. He's not as targeted as Blue is. He has a better social game, I would say, overall, and is more active and willing to like get in there and make deals in relationships. And so definitely in a better spot than Blue. Like Blue, though, his position was like in a free fall until this flip happened, which he had very little to do with. And now it's back up and it's like, ooh, things could look pretty good again. But I think we have seen him display a distinct lack of adaptiveness, willingness to adapt. It's not good. It's just as bad as my ability to adapt from trying to make adaptiveness work. Not great. I don't have a ton of faith, but if this falls into his lap, and as Cory says, his crew wins a few comps in a row, all of a sudden that one thing he wants to do starts working. And at that point, who knows? So, yeah, about a 5 for Jag for me. Chappell, what are your thoughts on Jared?
Pooh. Hi. Okay. I love Pooh. He is a ridiculous human though. Watching him play this game has been fun, but he's playing it with his mom, which gives him like an automatic like XP points or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like he has the ability to run stuff past somebody who will, you know, talk him down, or he can run stuff by without bias. You know, they're gonna have each other's back. So he's naturally in a better spot than say a Jag who just won't ever have like complete information moving around in the house. That being said, I don't think he's playing poorly. I just think he's a liability to Cirie, but I think he's fine. I don't think either side has targeted him anytime soon. Because Cirie's side definitely not going to target him because Cirie's right there. And then Riley's side is not going to target him because Cirie's right there. So I think that he's fine. He's insulated, he's insulated okay. And I think he does some really good work when it's time. I see that like he got like an average of a 7 last time. I gave Cory a 7, but I think Jared's in a way more solid position than Cory. And I don't think that necessarily has to do with all of Jared's doing. I think a lot of times he might be setting himself back in a lot of ways. I think Cory might be the more talented player, but due to circumstances, Jared's probably in a little better of a spot. But I can't give him an 8 just because, like I said, he's been moving kind of funny. So I'd give him a 7 too, but it's like a high 7. It's not like, you know, it's not a solid 7. He's just like it's up there.
All right. Well, the audience can give Jared something that's not a 7. They can give him a 6, which is what they did. Actually, Chappell, you nailed it for me. For me, it was comparing him to Cory. I feel like Cory is playing a lot better than Jared right now, but Jared is in a much better spot. And part of that obviously has to do with the fact that his mom is Cirie and she's in the game right now. Right?
Yep.
And so yeah, I will also give Jared a 7 here, down from the 8 last week. Last week, I felt like Jared started very messy and then was cleaning it up and learning. And I was like, okay, look at this Jared. This week, I'm like, that was the anomaly, actually. He is mostly messy. Mostly messy, but still effective enough that it's working for him. I think he really not only is bailed out by the fact that his mom is Cirie and doing a lot of work, but he also really got bailed out by the Cameron situation because let me tell you, they are suspicious of Jared for being the mole. And I think they were like really close to like starting to actually land those suspicions onto him when Riley came out and said, oh no, that was Cameron actually. And they still are like, but who did it? Do you think it might have been Jared? Do you think we can trust? Oh wait, no, it was Cameron. I forgot. And it's like, whoo, like that's really helping him out here. So I think that this flip works for Jared, but I do think that he needs to start like locking things in. I think pulling Blue is key to him and Cirie moving forward in a really successful way. I don't know how like willing he is to do that right now, but I think it could be very effective. His position is good. I think it was Puya in the chat was asking me to get Chappell your thoughts on Jared's Riz game.
Yeah, he's been flirting in the house, so I've heard. I have had the blessing. I've not been cursed with having to sit through it. I've heard about the cringe. But so different game works for different people. I would say that telling somebody like I can make you fall in love with me, like that's a Chappell move. I wouldn't say it out loud on camera on TV, where y'all would never see me. Y'all ain't never gonna hear me say that to nobody, but crazier things have been said when my riz is being questioned. And so who are me to judge this man? But I definitely I just wouldn't be doing this in public. This is not how I would move in public. I'd be like, whoa, that's not me, baby. It's this is the time to put on your Drake hat, be a certified lover boy, make the people at home think that because when you get out of this house, you're not gonna be worried about blue. And now people at home are watching you and thinking like, dang, he seemed like such a nice fellow, but look at him. He's so conceited. He's so misogynist, all the other stuff. Baby, but you got to play the long game. Keep your mask on for just a little bit longer. Then you get out and you might meet some people. So I do not support Pooh in that. Okay, his flirting. I disavow everything he's doing.
If you had to give him a flirting Stockwatch rating, what would it be?
It always comes down to effectiveness for me. It don't seem like it's not working. So not to be on the fence too much, but you're probably doing better than Bowie and them. So I give him a 6.
All right, a 6 from Chappell. The flirt game. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Jared?
As far as the flirt game goes, no, I think
would it work on you?
Look, I do think that Chappell is right. Like that, the whole I could make you fall in love with me, like could be a winning line. Like I know that it's like very much like cheesy, but I think like if you're into it, it can be
right.
You can be a good line. But I think the part about like, oh, we'll go to a club and I'll get more attention than you. I guess you're not used to
Wild
attention.
behavior.
Like I would be like, okay, no, that is
Wild.
so not it. Like I do not want a guy like bragging about the attention he gets at a club, like, and saying that he thinks I just must not be used to that kind of attention. I'd be like, well, rude.
To be clear, he said that she's used to getting all the attention,
but not used to a guy getting attention.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look,
I feel like
that. He said it himself. Look, no, I'm joking.
Yeah. See, that's the thing is I feel like that would turn me off for sure. Is a guy being like, I would get more attention than you. That would absolutely turn me off. Look, so that's not it for me.
He's Cirie's son, Melissa. I mean, I'm sorry. You just don't. You get to walk around with a certain glow. I think
that is the thing. Is that his biggest trump card he can't play?
Yeah, she doesn't know it. Yeah.
Hey, you know, Cirie's my mom. Which, by the way, when I met him, was his opening line to me, and it worked. So
I mean, yeah, instantly. You see me like, pooh.
I mean, he made me fall in love with him in that moment. So, like, he's kind of right, I think. I don't know.
It's not wrong.
So, yeah.
Strategically, though.
Oh, okay. We're talking about strategy. Well, I think you guys are both right. I think he's very messy. I have not been super impressed with his gameplay so far, especially because I just feel like his reads are wrong. Like, if he didn't have Cirie, I would probably be rating him much, 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 much lower. Like, the fact that he has his mom there automatically bumps him up. And the fact that, like, you know, she's obviously going to try and keep him along as long as she can. Like, that's automatically, you know, a bump. But on his own, he's really not doing good work. He does a good job of talking to people, but I think the way that he's seeing the game is like not right. I think he absolutely should have been trying to keep Riley this week. And instead he was really pushing for Riley to go home, which doesn't make any sense to me because Riley really likes him and thinks that they are working together. So like, why would you be like, and I feel like after every conversation where it's like, very clear the person is like into working with him and like very much like on the Jared train, he leaves the conversation and is like, I don't feel good about them at all. Like we did not have a good conversation. Like I'm worried about them. I'm suspicious of them. And it's like, that is not the read that you should be getting from that conversation. Like they really like you. They want to work with you. So I it's like we said with Cory, it's like we get those cam talks and I feel so much more confident about his game. And even though he might not be in the best position, the fact that I feel like he has such a good read on the house makes me feel confident that he would be able to get himself out of a bad situation and that he'd be able to kind of read the room and be like, okay, this is what I need to do. Whereas Jared, I feel like he does not have that. And I think the only way that he has, been doing so well so far is because of his mom. So at this point, I got to give him a 6. I'm going with the audience.
Ooh.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's
I'll
move
say
on
this.
then.
Well, him wanting to win HOH was also an indictment on him too. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
come
he
on,
still
man.
does,
What was that
too.
about? Yeah,
Yeah.
Stop that. Stop it. Cut it out. It's like, pooh, what the hell? So if he wins HOH, I'm probably going to be screaming at home at my television, like, what the heck are you doing? But I do think with Cirie there, if she could just start to do more strategy for him, I think that'd be fine. She just kind of letting him have a little bit too much rope.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to hang himself with it eventually.
Yeah. And I think also the chat brings up a good point is that, he had the perfect situation lined up where he could like ride the middle and be totally fine. I mean, he had these 2 alliances that wanted to protect him. Everybody wanted to keep him safe. And instead he's like, no, I don't trust this side. I don't trust Riley. We got to get Riley out, like very adamantly. And it seems it's one thing to be like, look, Riley's going home. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to fall on the sword for Riley. But it's like another thing to be like actively saying Riley needs to go when that's really not the case for you at all. Riley, it was good for your game. So I don't know.
All right, let's move on then to Matt, who last week got 5s except for a 6 from me. This week, the audience again gave him a 5. But I'm again going to give him a 6. And mostly because this flip is happening. I think he was going to drop for me, but this flip happening is really good for him, in my opinion, because Matt is consistently the least targeted person within that core group of 4 players of Jag, Blue, Riley, and himself. People really like Matt. Riley, they don't always love. Jag, they like, but they don't like how he talks game a lot of the time. And Blue, a lot of people don't love Blue. But they love Matt, and they enjoy talking game with Matt when it happens. And they understand why it doesn't happen a whole lot. And he's clear about that. Like, I have to pull people to like one-on-one conversations. I'm not able to talk game as much as other people. And on top of that, there's, whatever happened at the veto ceremony has created a sentiment that like, we should not target Matt. Like whatever happened was unfair or whatever the case may be. I think there's a deep desire to get Matt to at least the jury. Not out of sympathy necessarily, but because they like him a lot and they don't think he's particularly threatening to them. And with Riley still in the game, he now is still a threat, but I think Riley will always go before Matt. And I think that's all good for Matt. And I think he is somebody that can pivot if Riley eventually does leave. And if she doesn't, then he's in a good spot. Like, so I like Matt's spot with Riley staying. And that's why I'm going to give him a 6. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, I had to unmute. Yeah, I generally agree. I think, I like Matt. I like Matt, but I'm concerned because, this week he really wanted Riley to stay. Riley's like basically his number 1 ally. And yet he didn't really do anything seemingly to try and get her to stay. I just feel like he doesn't know what to do with the game. I feel like it's a situation where he's kind of just like sitting back and letting people like put him into their alliance, maybe win a few comps, but he doesn't really know what to do strategy wise in between. I think he's in a decent spot right now. Obviously with the flip going through, if the flip goes through, keeping Riley is really great for Matt because she's like basically his number 1 ally. But I just don't really see it yet. And I also think he would be an easy target because he's a strong, athletic guy. You know, it would be an easy thing to be like, look, let's just get out the big comp threats now, and then just boot him because he's not really in with that many people. It'd be kind of an easy move. So yeah, I'm going to give a 5 to Matt.
All right, Chappell.
Okay. So Matt, in my opinion, is probably in the best spot of anybody on that other side, that this side of 5s and 4s that we have going on, because he's likable and because he's nice, and that's about it. You know, I think that he actively could have helped in the Riley situation. I think Hisam kind of just like bullied him into, I don't want to say bully because that's a targeted word, but he basically intimidated him into like, you cannot use the veto on her. If you do that, then you going up next. And then he didn't win the veto, but it was still this idea that if you defend Riley, you're my number one target moving forward. And I think that kind of put him in a side where he didn't want to make too much friction in the house. But I also think that there's nothing wrong with you being the number one target after Riley if you save Riley, right? If you actively can get Riley off the block, then go for it. You know, make that happen, because then Hisam cannot play in the HOH next week. So you got at least one bye week where you don't have to worry about him. And, you know, you could be working on relationships outside of that. You know, if you're trying to make a flip happen, you need to be actively involved in this flip so that these people are saving Riley. But, you know, by extension, they're saving you. And I just think that there was a lot of motion that he could have made, you know, done, but he didn't do anything. I think that he was just trying to lay low and just have enough social graces with everybody to where he'd be fine. I don't see him going before the jury, but I also don't think he's in a great position. I think he's just in a better position than those people. So like, he's not my number 1 or 2 that's going home anytime soon. So I'd probably give him a 6. But that's basically because I gave all of his other inactive players with him a 5.
All right. Let's move on then to Mimi. And last week, Mimi got straight 6s. Oh, this time it's tricky. I think Mimi is probably like one of the most strategically capable players in the house, maybe in general. But this flip is not good for her. She doesn't have a relationship with Riley. On top of that, her reluctance to go along with the flip has created a scenario where Riley now knows that she's like one of the holdouts. And I think absolutely will be one of the people that Riley is looking at in a post-Hisam world. And that's not good for Mimi, especially because she's not super active in creating these relationships with other people. On top of that, she just refuses to use, like, I don't need you to like Cory. I don't need you to trust Cory, but I would like you to use Cory a lot more than you are, because he is a very valuable piece to use, especially for the position that she's in. And he mistakenly trusts her way more than he should. And she should, in my eyes, be using that, but she's not. She just kind of humors him in the conversation and then like rolls her eyes after it's done, which like it's unfortunate. And then like I saw how she was playing with this whole flip situation, and Izzy comes to her like, hey, this flip is happening. We're thinking about it at least. And then she goes to the pantry and she gives an amazing rant that I loved watching. She composes herself and I'm like, this is fantastic. But then she didn't really do much with that, you know? Like, given that she was so adamantly against this happening and Izzy told her it was happening, I would have loved to have seen her be more active that night and all throughout the day today to be checking in like, hey, Cirie, Izzy told me that you might be flipping. What are you thinking? Let's talk about it. If she had gotten in there early enough, I think she would have had a much better chance at convincing them to not go through with it. But by the time they talked to her later in the day, they had already had the conversations with Riley and Matt and Jag and Blue and all of these people and really locked it all in place. And she was one of the last people they told. And she was like, no, this is a terrible idea. And they're like, what if we told you it's already happening? And she was like, well, I would go along with it, but I don't think we should do that. And it's like, if you had gotten to them earlier, you would have had a better shot, I think. And also, if she had gotten in earlier and accepted that she couldn't stop it, then her name wouldn't have been brought up in those conversations with Riley and Matt about how she's a holdout. And so I do not like how I think her lack of active gameplay is hurting her specifically in this spot. And I think that this flip is very bad for her. And not only is it bad for her positionally, but it's also not good for her relationships, because it's like showing somebody like Cirie, who loves people who agree with her, that she's not as easy to be swayed as I think Cirie would like. I don't think that means Cirie's going to go for her anytime soon, but it does probably mean that if Riley does start setting targets in a post Hisam world, I think Mimi is a good person for Cirie to be like, yeah, remember that she was not really on board. So for those reasons, I don't know if she's. I think I have to go down to a 5. I think I do. I don't want to. I think that I think she's a better player than that, but I think the current circumstances are kind of rough right now. So those are my thoughts. Melissa, what do you think?
I think you're right in your reads. I mean, I think that she's a very, very smart game player. I think that, you know, when she does her, you know, storage unit or storage room rants, I think those are great. And it really gives insight to the fact that, like, she knows what she's talking about. She's not just really going along with things. She is active. However, I just don't think she's, like, her mind is active, but I don't think she's active enough in the game. I don't think she's doing enough stuff, talking to enough people to really get, you know, if she feels that strongly, like you said, she should do something about it. She shouldn't just sit back and then be like, oh gosh, it's already happening. Also, yeah, it's really disappointing that she's not working with Cory more. I think that could be a really, really, really strong duo. I mean, they could do so well together because they're both so smart. They both know the game. And yet she doesn't want to work with him, which is disappointing. So yeah, I don't really know. I do like her a lot, and I think that I do think she could go far. So I'm going to stick with my 6 and hope that goes up.
All right, Chappell.
This is tough. I am extremely biased when it comes to Mimi, my sorority sister. I see you. All right. Shout out to the Reds. Okay. Here's the thing. She has what it takes up here, but she's not moving. She's not doing anything to better her position. She's just watching her position crumble. At least someone like Jag is like, no, join my alliance. She's more like, what are y'all doing? Why are y'all ruining this for me? But she's not doing anything to fix it. I don't think she has a number 1 ally. And I think that's what frustrates everybody when it comes to her and Cory, that they would be perfect for each other because they both need each other. They need somebody like the other one who can kind of move freely to the other alliance or whatever and still not be, you know, one of Cirie's minions necessarily. It's like she's fine with being the 4th minion. You know, it's like, oh, I'm fine here. Which, if this was the end game, sure, maybe she's just hanging out in the middle watching people get knocked off. But she's not in the end game. The other side is going to have to start picking off the people who they're less connected to, and she's going to be one of those casualties. But I love her so much. I just do. She's great because she's so entertaining. But I really want her to be in a situation where people are able to see her as a player, but not as a threat. You know, I don't think anybody's going to Mimi to make these things happen. They're more telling her these things are happening, and she's like, "What are you talking about? That's so dumb." But also, you don't have any power to stop it. And I really wish she did. I think that, yeah, if Riley isn't gone, that's bad. That's bad for her because it's very clearly her. And if something happens, you know, where they maybe they aren't loving the results of that, then they're gonna be like, well, it's Mimi's fault, you know. And so I really wish she had a little bit more agency and more pull, more sway. But I cannot give her a 5. She's so good. She's aware. She's like Cory and Jared have the built-in benefit of Cory knows the game really, really well. Jared has Cirie in the house. Mimi is like right below them as far as like where I think her position is. So I have to give her a 6, but it's like a 6.9. You know, I just can't round it up. Not in good faith.
All right. The audience agrees with the two of you on Mimi. They also gave her a 6 this week. So there you go. Let's talk about red. We got 2 players left, and the second to last here is red. Melissa, what are your thoughts on red?
I don't know about red.
Say who?
I don't know. I mean, okay, the idea that they are putting him in the Nether region so that he doesn't get a vote. I mean, I guess that's like not a great sign for him. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what he's doing. I think like if this flip goes through, it's obviously not that good for him because he is working with Cameron. So this is bad. I mean, it's hard to judge. It's hard to rate these players off of a flip happening that we're not even sure is gonna happen. But I think the fact that he's not really involved in it anyway, and they're not even having him have a vote or a say in it is really not good for him. I don't really know where he fits in on in the house, so I'm just a little like confused here. If Cameron goes home, I think Red's in a really, really bad spot. At this point, you know what? I'm just gonna give him a 3 because I don't know.
All right, Chappell.
He is losing probably his #1 ally in the house. Like, this is the one person who we know is not going to target him at all. That's not great. And I also think he's an easy piece at this point to just pick off. If you want to have an HOH reign and not piss anybody off, you put red up on the block. I think people will be fine. I think either side would be like, okay. And that's not great either. Man, I gave everybody else a 5. And I did, yeah, but I cannot give Red a 5 at all. I'm sorry. But is he better than Izzy? I think they're in a very similar spot for me. I really think they're not doing anything to make their life better. It is only getting harder for them if you let them have their own their free reign, I guess. And so yeah, give me a 4 for Red. But it's a conservative 4. It should be a 3. Honestly, it probably should be a 3, but whatever. I'll go with a 4.
All right. The audience agrees with Chappell. They gave Red a 4. But I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna agree with Melissa on this one. I think it's a 3. I think this flip is really bad for him. Being one of the only people left out of the vote is tremendously bad. Losing one of his closest allies, essentially getting kicked out of the professors via this flip. And on top of all of that, almost every single person in the house is planning to nominate him next week as a pawn. But let's be real, if the veto goes to Hisam, the backup target is almost assuredly Red. And that's not good. Being used as a pawn in general is not good. His prospects in this game are dire, and he does not know it yet. And it's all because he kind of attached his, his ship, hitched his ship over to Cameron, and that is not a good idea. So, yeah, it's gonna be a 3 for me. Let's talk about Riley, our last player on the board. Chappell, what are your thoughts on Riley?
Man, this is like a doomsday thing for Riley, right? Just the worst case scenario. Hisam winning the HOH just puts a huge target on her. But then again, this flip could happen. So I was like, if the flip happens, I think she's fine. I think she's in a great spot. Because I think that if they're flipping, they're willing to insulate her for a little bit longer. They're not just going to save her just to spite Hisam and not actually have plans for her. But there's a non-zero chance that she goes home. I mean, it is honestly, I really don't even know which way it's going. Like, it does feel like there's a flip, but who knows? We still have plenty of time. And if Hisam calms down a little bit, this person could be out. I cannot see myself giving somebody a higher score than any of these people when they are potentially going out the door. I mean, I gave Cameron a 1. She's doing better than Cameron because at least she has people ready to vouch for her. I think as a player, she's probably more capable than in America, a Blue or a Bowie, but we won't ever know because she could be gone. I will not give her a 4, though. I'll probably give her a 3 because she is, as far as I'm concerned, the flip's not going to happen. She's gone. And so I'm just going to be cautiously optimistic and hope for the best. But yeah, there's really nothing she can do. She's just relying on the kindness of strangers right now to save her in this game. And the one person who gets Cirie's ear the most is going to win the day. She's done a really good job of doing that, of making Cirie feel really comfortable with her. But Hisam should not want you out like this. Like he should not be willing to throw his game away basically to get you out of the game. You've done something wrong, and so I can't give her any credit, anything higher than a 3.
All right. Well, the audience does agree. They gave Riley a 3. And I think I'm also going to agree. I think that I do think she'll stay at this point. I mean, that's what it's looking like at this point. Obviously, things could change. But even if she does stay, I still don't love her position. It's much better than it was before, certainly. But it's still not like amazing. She's still a big target. And I'm also not going to give her a ton of credit for this flip. I think it's primarily Cirie's doing. And I mean, really, she was actively hurting her own chances of staying for a while, refusing to take advice from Cirie and Cory, who were telling her exactly what she needed to do. She still wasn't doing it. They had to then kickstart the whole process themselves, and Cirie in particular, and really like orchestrate these conversations between Riley and Izzy and Riley and Felicia that eventually started to pay off. But man, like she still isn't doing herself much favors. Like today, she's supposed to be acting nervous. She's already hinted, like she can't. She's so happy. She's laughing, dancing, singing, having a great time. And Hisam is concerned. He's like, why is she so happy? And she has already gone back to only hanging out with her friends again. Like she literally took a little bit of time away to talk game with the people she needed, and then went straight back to her allies. And you know, even to a player like Cory, it's frustrating him. He's like, what is she doing? So I don't give her a ton of credit. Obviously, in those conversations, she has made people feel good about herself, or have made them feel good about her, and you know, she's doing some things right for sure. But even her allies, Jag and Blue, have been like, she's kind of a loose cannon still, though. Like, look, great, we're keeping her, but like, should we include her in what we're doing moving forward? Like, so given the fact that she still could also go home, theoretically, yeah, I'm gonna give her a 3.
Yeah, I agree. I was really disappointed in Riley this week because, you know, it's one thing to not really know what to do or who to go to if you know, whatever. But like when people are telling you specifically, like, okay, here's what you need to do to make this flip happen. And then you still just sit around for hours talking with your own friends. Like I was just so shocked. I was watching the feeds and I was literally like, okay, like when's she gonna get up? When's she gonna go talk to somebody? Like when are they? It was just like talking with her friends about like, oh yeah, well, hopefully I stay or whatever. It's just like, or even sometimes not even talking game. It was like just laying there on the hammock or whatever, just chit chatting. And it's like, okay, move on, go have these conversations. There's not that much time. I mean, if people already, like, if you let people feel like you're not in the house anymore, they're going to be like, well, what difference does it make if you go out this week? Like if you're not actively talking to people and you're just sitting in one corner with your friends, like it's not going to convince anybody to want to keep you. They're just going to be like, yeah, this doesn't make a difference to me whether or not you go. So who cares? And I feel like you said, the only reason this flip is happening is because of other people, not because of Riley. So I was really disappointed in Riley this week. I know she wants to stay, but it's like, well, you know, you got to do something to stay. So, I mean, we'll see if she can turn this around if she stays. But at this point, I'm not feeling so confident about her game or her skills. I think she's very, very easily swayed by people. We saw what happened with Cameron. So I just feel like even if she does stick around, I don't know for how long. So I'm going to give a 3 as well.
And can I just say, she should not even be a target this week. This woman was handed an HOH with candidates already on the block. She didn't even have to get any blood on her hands. She literally was saving people and still managed to get somebody so mad that he's willing to just throw it all away to galvanize the entire house against her. You did this to yourself. I know I just gave you a 3, but this is abysmal gameplay. What are you doing? It's so embarrassing that she got in the house and just biffed this so bad. What are you doing? I'm sorry. Yeah, she's up against Cameron, so she has a good chance to stay. But dear God, I mean, of her entire alliance, that's the lowest score I've given out. I don't count Cameron. And Hisam isn't even in her alliance. So yeah, this is bad. She's got to do better, or she's going to be next, or something. I don't even know what we do with a player like her. But there's no reason how you should not have messed this up. This was a freebie.
Yeah. Well, that is what we have for the Stockwatch this week. An interesting week of gameplay here. As we move forward into this eviction, where we might get a massive blindside. I mean, next week, Hisam looking like he is in some trouble. So let me try and take a quick look at the leaderboard. Probably some glitches here in general, but I think Cirie ends up probably being the best buy here.
Her power,
which
her mind,
yeah, let's
energy,
be real.
Her aura.
But obviously we also got some increases from Cory. Felicia gets a bump. Jared, Mimi is going to, Matt as well is going to go up a bit. So buying any of them was a good move. And we got some downgrades as well. You know, Cameron, Bowie, Riley, Hisam. Not great. If you want to play along, though, make sure you go to realittystockwatch.com and you can play along at home. Buy some shares. Do you think that anybody is currently undervalued? Do you think somebody is going to continue to increase their value moving forward? You get to make those calls over on the website. Any final thoughts before we start to wrap up here, Melissa?
You know, this is so far a fun season. The feeds have been great, very entertaining. I love how everybody is, you know, just gaming. It's fantastic. I'm very excited to see what happens with this potential blindside of Hisam. I really don't know where they're going to go from here if that does happen. So, you know, that'll be a fun episode to watch, and also, you know, fun feeds afterwards.
All right. Chappell, any final thoughts?
Of course. Thank y'all for having me. This was fun. This is my first time. Hopefully I didn't mess up anybody's money too much. But again, y'all know what y'all called me here to do. As far as the season goes, yeah, it's been fun feeds, but man, I'm a little disappointed in my show. I really would love for people to watch Big Brother and see it the way we see it, right? So we're not so ashamed that people are watching this game. And sometimes it's just really stupid stuff that they're showing, but a lot of times they're just doing a disservice to the amount of gameplay that's going on into the house. These people are playing their asses off, a lot of them. And then a lot of them are just, you know, blue in America, you know, and stuff like that. But I would really love to see those players start to get a little more active so that we can see some more movement in the charts. But right now, I enjoyed being here, and hopefully y'all will have me back another time.
There you go. People are asking who we bought in the Stockwatch. Melissa, would you like to share?
Well, luckily I didn't put all of it into Kirsten, but I did put half because I really thought the eviction wasn't going to happen. I thought that she would stay and that would automatically bump the stocks up. Luckily, I put the rest in Mimi, although I guess maybe not so luckily because I think she did go down this week, so that's not great. But
no, I think she stayed at 6, which means she probably went up a little bit.
Oh, good. Okay, phew. But yeah, so that was not great for me. I really, honestly, I took a chance. I thought, you know, I'm gonna get these stocks. I'm gonna buy Kirsten. I'm gonna go for it, and I just not good.
Yes. Well, I completely ran out of time. We were having some issues with the website at the last minute. So I didn't even look at the projections at all and just panic bought Cirie.
Which I
Because
think is
of
the best buy anyway, right?
faith in Cirie, which
Bingo.
guess what? It turns out that worked. So,
Yep.
you know, when in doubt,
Bye,
have
Cirie.
faith in Cirie. That's the
That
thing.
part. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, all right, let's see where things go from there. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. You can of course find me tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, to update you on everything that happened today and will continue to happen tonight on the Big Brother 25 live feeds. Lots to talk about as this flip continues its motion. Tomorrow we will also have an episode. I'll be live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, watching the episode live with all of you. It should be an interesting episode if they actually use the interesting stuff. But at the very least, we'll get to see the veto speech, hopefully, that shook the house. And we'll, of course, have a podcast after the fact to recap what goes down. And then, of course, on Thursday, we'll have another episode and recap. So find me again over on Twitch. You can find me at Twitter, on Twitter as well, tweeting things out. I recently did a podcast with Sam Sanders for the Intuit podcast, which is the Vulture flagship podcast, where we talked about Big Brother and what the appeal is, and all kinds of what's going on with that show. It was paired with an interview with Taylor. So if you don't want to, if you're like, oh, just Taran, it also has Taylor. So you can check that out if you want to. I thought it was a very interesting conversation, especially because Sam is not really somebody that knows the show. So it was a lot of like trying to explain this perspective to like a dude that worked at NPR for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, so interesting stuff there. Yeah, I think that's about that. Chappell, what do you got going on?
I'm still the co-host of Nothing But Netflix with Rob Cesternino, and every week on RHAP, Rob and I cover a new Netflix show. Last week we talked about Untold, the Johnny football story, the story of Johnny Manziel, and it was a great time. And this week we are covering season 1 of Suits in preparation of our, still in development, potentially daily Suits podcast. Don't tell anybody, but I think it's in the works, y'all. Rob's crazy and he might want to talk about Suits every day. So if you've been watching Suits on Netflix or on Peacock, and you have some thoughts about it or want to hear me and Rob talk about it, check that out on Nothing But Netflix, and then stay tuned because there might be more Suits coverage coming your way. Also, Wednesday, tomorrow, here on RHAP live at 4 p.m. Eastern, I will be talking about Below Deck on YouTube with Sasha. We will be covering the 2 most recent episodes of Below Deck Selling Yacht. And so come hop in the chat, come party with me and Sasha because we got a lot to say. It's messy over there. Me and Sasha are reckless on that podcast. So I'm telling you, it's a good time. Check it out. And then I'll be on the Wrestling Wrap Up this week, talking to Matt and Mari about the week in the wacky world of wrestling, because every now and then they bring me in to discuss some things, and SummerSlam was a big deal, and so they're gonna let me come give my opinion, my uninformed opinion about what's going on in the WWE. But to keep up with everything else I'm talking about, follow me on Twitter at Chappell's_show, and you'll see me tweet out those links and more. You can also catch me on Silent Podcast, talking with Sasha about Never Have I Ever. We're about to do the finale, season 4 series finale of Never Have I Ever on Silent Podcast. So if you're a fan, go check it out. We've talked about every season so far. It's on our podcast feed, Never Have I Ever by Silent Podcast, or you could just go jump right in, follow Silent Podcast, and catch our last one. But yeah, follow me on Twitter, and you'll see all the rest of that stuff.
You are doing too much stuff. That is too much. That is too much. Oh my God. I don't know how you keep track of all those shows.
Oh, stop.
It's true.
Yes. Well,
no.
You can find Melissa. She is the 14th best performing Melissa on the Stockwatch.
Oh, brother. Don't
out of 14.
That's so sad. It's the fact that I'm doing so horribly that I can't even compete with all the population, and now I just have to compete with Melissa's, and I'm still losing. Oh my God, it's so sad. It's so sad.
Well, you can find her at It's Melissa with 3 A's. 3 of them. And that's about it. Thank you all so much for joining, and we will see all of you next time.